order and request Claudia do a roll call.
Committee Member Hunter. Councilor Benner.
Here.
Committee Member Mann.
Here.
Councilor Geary.
Good evening.
Committee Member Frost.
Here.
Councilor Cunningham.
Here.
Committee Member Ernst.
Aye.
Councilor Tukolsky.
He's on his way in.
Committee Member Chisholm.
Here.
Councilor Chenoweth.
Here.
Council President Peralta.
Here.
Committee Member Maxfield.
Here.
Committee Member Harmon Ferry is absent this evening, and Mayor Morris.
Here. First thing we're going to do tonight is elect a chairperson for the Urban Renewal Budget Committee. At the close of the election, the new chair will preside over the remainder of the Budget Committee meeting. I'd like to now call for nominations for chair of the Urban Renewal Agency Budget Committee.
Madam Mayor, I move Meredith Maxfield for the Urban Renewal Budget Committee chairperson.
Do I have any further nominations? All right, so there is a motion for Meredith Maxfield to be the budget chair. Do I have a second?
Second.
So a motion from Councilor Peralta, a second from Councilor Geary. Claudia, can you do a roll call?
Councilor Benner.
Aye.
Committee Member Mann.
Aye.
Councilor Geary.
Aye.
Committee Member Frost.
Aye.
Councilor Cunningham.
Aye.
Committee Member Ernst.
Aye.
Councilor Tukolsky.
Aye.
Committee Member Chisholm.
Aye.
Councilor Chenoweth.
Aye.
Council President Peralta.
Yes.
Committee Member Maxfield.
I abstain.
And Mayor Morris.
Aye. You good? Okay, so congratulations again. And I'm going to turn it all over to you.
Okay. We have before us the minutes from last year's May 21st Budget Committee meeting on the consent agenda. Does anyone wish to pull anything from consent? Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved. Second.
Okay, a motion made by Councilor Chenoweth and a second by Councilor Cunningham. Oh, Councilor Geary, yeah. Claudia, will you do a roll call?
Councilor Benner.
Abstain.
Committee Member Mann.
Abstain.
Councilor Geary.
Aye.
Committee Member Frost.
Aye.
Councilor Cunningham.
Aye.
Committee Member Ernst.
Aye.
Councilor Tukolsky.
Aye.
Committee Member Chisholm.
Abstain.
Councilor Chenoweth.
Aye.
Council President Peralta.
Yes.
Mayor Morris.
Aye.
And Chair Maxfield.
Aye.
The consent agenda has passed 9 ayes and 3 abstentions.
Do I then need to repeat that? Okay, great. Okay, moving on. Does any committee member need to declare an actual or potential conflict of interest or recuse themselves? I will then turn the time over to Adam Garvin, City Manager, to present.
Thank you, Chair Maxfield. I will be deferring this to Community Development Director Heather Richards to kick off her presentation around the URA.
So, good evening, Chair Maxfield and Budget Committee members. In your role as the Budget Committee for the Urban Renewal Agency, we'll be presenting that budget to you tonight. The Urban Renewal Agency was established in 2013. It was established to revitalize our city center, what we call our Northeast Gateway District in our downtown area. The Urban Renewal Agency is a separate entity to the city of McMinnville, but it contracts with the city of McMinnville to staff and support the agency. And as the Community Development Director, I serve as that staff support for the agency. So the purposes of urban renewal is to improve specific areas of the city that are poorly developed or underdeveloped. And there are many different tests for that in the state law as to what constitutes a poorly developed or undeveloped area. One is old or deteriorated buildings, and we did an analysis of both the Northeast Gateway area and the downtown for that and showed that over 50% of the buildings were either of low improvement value or not up to current codes. The streets and utilities are also in poor condition, is also a test of an area that needs to be revitalized, and lack of parking. So what urban renewal does is it allows for the use of tax increment financing to fund projects, which will then encourage redevelopment of that area, business investment, and economic vitality. Tax increment financing is a method of reallocating the taxes generated in that area after the agency has been established directly to the agency to fund those projects. And that's the increment that we're talking about. The taxes that were established prior to the agency, the taxes that were paid prior to the agency being established still gets paid to all the overlapping taxing districts. It's just the increment above that base. The funds, urban renewal is meant to be used in two ways, and you'll see that as we go through this. It's meant to be used to actually go into debt to fund projects, because the premise is you're funding projects to revitalize the area, and then that is paid for, that is paid back through the tax increment financing. And you can also fund projects in a cash flow basis as well as you go. When the urban renewal area is established, the city puts together a plan that says these are the projects that we're going to implement to reverse what we decided the findings for the conditions of blight and deterioration in that area. And then you can only fund those projects that are in that plan. So it's highly regulated funding source. It's governed by both this adopted urban renewal plan and urban renewal report. The report is the financial feasibility report that we had to do in 2013 to establish the area. And then it's also governed by ORS 457. This is a map of the urban renewal area, which includes the Northeast Gateway District and the downtown. The downtown, as you will notice here, is expanded from what many people see as the downtown. It actually encompasses the blocks between Adams and Baker and goes up to 7th Street and that little spine up the couplet. So there are 13 projects, we call them the Baker's Dozen, that's actually in the plan itself. Each project is described as to what that improvement will be or how those fundings will be spent. The plan also describes how much money will be spent on those projects, and that money is calculated in 2013 dollars. And then the plan describes when is the best time to actually implement those projects. And you can, the dollar figure for the projects are then have an inflationary value to the year when they're implemented. So for instance, if we decided to move forward with Lafayette Avenue in 2034, that $1.5 million set aside for that project, we would calculate what that inflationary cost would be from 2013 to 2034 to be able to implement that appropriately in the value of the dollars in that time period. So the Urban Renewal Agency is advised by the McMinnville Urban Renewal Advisory Committee. Many of you have sat on that before. Their charge is to implement the Urban Renewal Plan. And so they, every year, work from a 5-year strategic plan. That strategic plan is based on two things. It's based on planning projects and delivering projects. So each year you will find in the budget some funds that are put into planning for future projects to be delivered and projects that we're trying to deliver that year. And that's very deliberate and intentional. It's meant to be, how do we expend funds and leverage them into the area to generate that tax base, which will create more funding for projects down the road. The focus has been over the last several years on doing a downtown plan. There's been a discussion about the need to update our 2000 downtown plan and encompass more area for that. Development assistance from the get-go has been a primary project, and the development assistance is funding into a private development project with gap funding so that the project can get off the ground. And that's intentional to create both tax base and jobs and economic vitality. And has been very successfully deployed here in McMinnville through the Urban Renewal Agency. We've been working on the 3rd Street Improvement Project for several years now. That's one of the larger projects in the plan. And if you go back to the schedule of projects, it's also one of the earlier projects in the schedule that we were meant to implement. So both the 3rd Street Streetscape Project and the Alpine Avenue project were both identified to start in 2016 in terms of planning and implementation. They were the 2 earliest projects. And then just recently, we've been working on the Northwest Rubber site. So that's a strategic move to pick up an opportunity site, again, to create a stimulus for private investment in the area and redevelop an industrial property there. That particular piece of property was identified in 2009 as a critical property in this area and an opportunity site for redevelopment. And then recently, we've been working on, we installed Alpine Avenue Phase 1 in 2018 and cut the ribbon for that project then. And we've been working on the planning and funding for Alpine Avenue Phase 2. So in terms of the budget itself, the budget for the Urban Renewal Agency for fiscal year 27 is about $2.3 million. And it is allocated to the projects in a variety of different ways. It's allocated to the projects based on what we know will be needed funds for certain projects to move forward, and then also what we want to put into a project line item so that we can be opportunistic and respond to appropriate development as it comes forward. So in the Development Assistance Program, which is one of the 13 projects, we have that divided between both development and housing development. And we usually carry about $150,000 in the budget to support that program. That's based on the fact that we don't know what projects will be coming forward over the next fiscal year that could be opportunities for us, but we want to be able to be responsive to that. Typically, over the years, we've been watching how much we put into that, and it hovers around $75,000 to $100,000 each year, unless we have a larger project come through. So, for instance, one of our first projects was the Atticus Hotel. In the fiscal year 25-26, we have now obligated $75,000 of the $100,000 that are set aside for development assistance. We set aside $50,000 separately for housing to encourage housing starts in the city center because we've struggled with that, and we still haven't allocated those yet. But the MURAC goes through this budget. It makes a recommendation to you as the budget committee as to how these funds should move forward into the next fiscal year, and they're proposing to keep it in that same category of $100,000 for development assistance and $50,000 for housing-specific development assistance. The 3rd Street Improvement Project, it has about $2.3 million that was identified in the Urban Renewal Plan to put into that project. And we have spent thus far $330,000 of that. And we are carried $200,000 in this fiscal year budget as an opportunity to combine that with the $850,000 we received from the federal government to continue on with the design and construction documents for that project. We've been negotiating that agreement with ODOT for the last fiscal year, so we have not gotten to a place where we need to spend those funds. So the advice is to move that forward into the fiscal year 27 budget. And what I meant to share with you, and I forgot, and I apologize, but here under the development assistance, where it says amount spent thus far, we have expended $617,000 of that budget. It's $940 in 2013 dollars, but it's meant to be a revolving loan fund. So it's loans and grants. And as the loans are paid off, it goes back into that program to sort of repopulate the funds into that program so that we can continue to move those forward and out the door. And grants are a 5-year clawback provision, so we provide grants to properties in the urban renewal area, and if they sell in 5 years, then they need to pay back those grants. So we've had both of those occur and have recovered $133,000 of that expenditure. The other thing I guess I want to point out to you is the downtown master plan is something that we want to move forward. We feel confident that we'll be able to move forward this next fiscal year as we've been working through staffing capacity in our long-range planning work program. And so that is funded, proposed funding for you in the fiscal year 27. And then you'll see the Alpine Avenue project is coming into play again in terms of expending funds. So originally, there was $5.3 million in the urban renewal plan for Alpine Avenue. For Phase 1, we spent about $2 million. It was a $4 million project. The other $2 million came from the transportation bond that the city passed. And we are and so we're paying that bond off right now, that $2 million bond. So we do bonded debt for big public improvement projects. That's the intention of the urban renewal. The bonded debt is about $187,000 a year. And then this next year, we're recommending $450,000 to do the design facilitation for the Phase 2 and to start the construction documents for that as well. We just recently received a $1.5 million grant from the state for that project. So we're confident with the remaining funds of the Urban Renewal Agency and the state funds, we'll be able to complete that project in full. So in terms of the how the budget is constructed for urban renewal, there's two budget funds. There's Fund 58, that's what we call our Project Implementation and Administration Fund, and there's Fund 59, that's our Debt Service and Revenue Fund. I like to start with Fund 59 because it's intuitively, that's where it starts. That's where the money comes in. So the property taxes come into Fund 59. That's where you get the tax increment financing property taxes every year. It's also where the beginning fund balance sits and where we also have the interest income. So when you look at the revenue of Fund 59, that's what you see there. In terms of expenses for Fund 59, that's project expenses that are, that's a typo there. It's project expenses that are annual debt. So it's the debt service fund. So you will see in there the expenses are the Alpine Avenue bond, the $187,000 I mentioned, and then the interest payments on the Northwest Rubber site. So the city bought the Northwest Rubber site with a loan from the wastewater enterprise fund that you'll hear about a little bit later tonight. And then the agency entered into an agreement with the city that the agency would pay the carrying cost, the interest payments on that loan. And so you will see that in this Fund 59. And then the last expense in Fund 59 is money is then transferred from that fund to Fund 58, which is where we do sort of the cash flow projects and not the bonded debt, not the debt projects. And so you'll see a large transfer from Fund 59 to Fund 58 for project implementation. So the revenue in Fund 58 is that money transferred from Fund 59. It's also interest income. The interest income is based on that property assistance program and the loan payments that we get every year for that, for the loans that are out. In terms of expenses in Fund 58, you'll see it divided in a couple of different ways. We have in there expenses for program administration. That's paying the city to support the work of the agency. The urban renewal plan actually has what I would call a governor on how much can be spent for administration. So it's not full cost recovery. The urban renewal plan actually says how much the agency can pay the city for that. So that participates in paying for the community development director's salary, but there is so much other support happening at the city to prop up the work of the agency through the finance team and our legal team and others, and the public works team. The property assistance program you will also find as expenses in here, and then the project planning. So the project planning for this next fiscal year will focus on Alpine Avenue Phase 2 design, as I described, the 3rd Street Improvement Project design, and then the downtown master plan update. So this gives you the specifics on the revenue that I just described. The beginning fund balance for this fiscal year is estimated to be $1.5 million. Our property taxes that we are forecasting, we work with the assessor on what we expect the forecasted property taxes to be for 26-27. That's estimated about $734,000. And then there's always money coming in from delinquent taxes that are collected for past tax years. The property assistance repayments are based on the loans that we have out today, and that's $14,914. All of our loans are in we have 2 payments per year on those to help with administration of those loan programs. And then interest income is about $61,100. In terms of expenditures, I went through most of these expenditures for you already, but I want to point out a couple that I think that would be of interest to you. We've carried $40,000 in the budget as sort of an opportunity expense if it comes to light that we can put this project together. But one of the projects in the plan is district identity for the downtown area. And so we've had discussions with the MDA about doing rooftop lights and wayfinding in the downtown area for many years. We worked on a wayfinding plan at one time. And then when we started talking about the 3rd Street Improvement Project, we decided to delay that because we thought we might be moving forward with that project more eminently than we are today. So we still carry that in the budget, and if the capacity exists to put that project together, and there's partnerships with the property owners, we have to meet with every property owner and get permission to put these lights on their buildings, then we'll move forward with that. The other one that's of interest is the property acquisition piece for the Northwest Rubber site and the costs associated with that. So the interest only payments cost per year is $215,766. And then we have $16,000 in Fund 58 to help pay for security. We have security on that site as well as any other costs associated with that site. Some utility costs are associated with it as well. And then the administration costs for this fiscal year, including everything rolled up, noticing, audit, those types of costs, is $84,557. We carry contingency in both funds, contingency in Fund 58 in case we need to move some money into some projects to respond to opportunities. And then Fund 59, we carry contingency in there as well. So that's the Urban Renewal Agency budget that's in front of you today.
All right, now we are going to open it up to discussion or questions for Director Richards, just focused on the Urban Renewal Agency. Councilor Benner?
I was trying the eyebrow thing and
sorry.
unsuccessful. Heather, you may have said this at the beginning, but funding for MURAC is property taxes, but what properties are being taxed to get that 700,000?
Every property in the urban renewal area that pays taxes is paying, based on the amount that, this is the area, all the tax growth that has occurred in there from 2013, all properties paying taxes, that incremental growth on their property is going to the Urban Renewal Agency. So the properties that don't pay taxes, and we have a lot of that in this urban renewal area, are the nonprofits.
So if there's a property on one side of the MURAC border and the other side of the MURAC border, they're paying the same taxes, we're just carving some of it out for MURAC?
Yeah, I mean, let's presume they're exact same value.
Yes, please.
Yes, that's what it would be. And so there's a kind of a misunderstanding because on our tax bills, we all get on our tax bills an urban renewal line item. There was a court case, there's a famous hotel owner who just hates urban renewal in every state in which they have hotels. And so they took the state to court, and there's a famous court case where where the outcome of that was you had to show to everyone in all the taxing districts how much their proportionate share would be of the urban renewal program based on the taxes collected from this area. But if urban renewal goes away, your taxes don't go down as personal. So my personal property tax won't go down. That line item doesn't come, I don't pay that much less the next year. It just goes into all my other taxing districts, and people don't seem to understand that. If you have a property in the urban renewal area, your taxes are going straight to the agency, that incremental growth, to pay for improvements in your area.
And so let's say on either side of this property line, there's the $100 taxes for outside, $100 inside. A portion of that would, without urban renewal, would go to the city. And the $100 would just all go to the city. Right now, we're carving off a portion of it.
Yeah, and that's what we call foregone revenue. So if I understand you correctly, the tax increment it would be comprised of all the different overlapping taxing districts would be getting that tax increment if the urban renewal agency did not exist. So that's what we call foregone revenue. The premise behind urban renewal is that tax increment should be getting higher and more exponential as you're investing in projects and creating vitality, so that the urban renewal area is, going up in value. And typically, when you sunset an urban renewal area, there's a study done to show what we call the foregone revenue payback, how long it takes to pay back that overlapping taxing district, the foregone revenue from the lifespan of the urban renewal area. And because of the exponential growth, it's a lot less time to pay it back, and then they're on that upward trajectory. So they're making money long-term much more than they would if the urban renewal didn't exist.
Thank you.
Oh, Counselor Chenoweth?
Thank you, Chair. This is probably not the place for this. However,
Thank you for starting that way.
I just want to make sure if it is, I don't miss it. When is the appropriate time, or assuming there ever is an appropriate time, to discuss the priorities list that's in the urban renewal district?
And if I can ask a clarifying question, the strategic plan, that 5-year strategic plan priorities list, because that would be now, because you're funding those, or the Baker's dozen projects that are in the urban renewal plan?
The Baker's dozen project that made up the total dollar amount that we went and asked the underlying or the other taxing districts permission to go forward with this urban renewal district. When would be the time to potentially have a discussion regarding that, if there could be a time? Is it in this kind of setting, or is it a later?
No, so I would say that's a policy decision for the Urban Renewal Board, which the City Council makes up the Urban Renewal Board.
Okay.
And that would be, I would suggest that be a work session to sort of walk through what does that look like. It's considered a major amendment to make those types of changes to the plan and the process you need to follow. But that's where I would do it if I were advising you.
Okay, thank you.
For the Budget Committee, if you're looking at the proposal for the fiscal year 27 budget and the projects that it's funding, that would be this plan, the 5-year strategic plan.
Counselor Chakosky?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Director Richards, on page 14 of the packet, I don't know if you have that in front of you. Looks like you do.
Yep.
Page 14, in the materials and services area, there is a consultant services for $40,000. Could you explain what that is?
Yeah, so that's just the ability in case we need to hire a consultant to do anything over the next year that isn't already planned for. So in the past, we've used that for legal expenses. So for instance, if we want to bring legal counsel in to help advise on a major amendment or something like that in the future, it would come out of that line item. It's a holding place. It's not currently allocated to anything.
Okay, thank you. And then in the past, have we had consultant services that we've used up to that value, or like how much did we use last year?
I think last year, because we had Leland Consulting helping us with the RFP, I believe we spent, I can't remember how much we spent on that, 25-ish maybe? I don't know, can you pull that up, Katie? Okay.
Okay, so if you spent 25, I guess 40 is appropriate. The downtown master plan in the same area for $350,000, and the phase 2 design services for $450,000. So you have project professional services for Alpine Avenue, $450,000. Could you explain what we're getting for that $450,000?
Yeah, so that is what we estimated, and I was working with the Public Works Director on what we thought it would cost over the next year to bring a team in to facilitate with the city stakeholders, whoever that would be, the Urban Renewal Board, MIRAC, and a project advisory committee, I'm assuming. What phase 2 of Alpine Avenue looks like? Is it the exact same design, or do we want to, change it a little bit, and then start the construction documents. The 1.5 million we got from the state, we need to build the improvement by 2029. So now we want to move forward with that work to start getting the construction documents done and then go into construction. This is just to do the early phase of the design and construction discussion.
And this Phase 2 design service will give us the opportunity to build that out by 2029?
Yeah.
Okay. And is this in line with the MURAC priorities of Alpine Avenue?
Yes.
Okay. And then could you, for myself and maybe others that don't understand, the downtown master plan, is that for the 3rd Street improvement area, or are those different?
No, so that's a great question, and thank you for asking that. I don't have a background slide, but I can talk about it through this process. So the McMinnville Urban Renewal Advisory Committee a couple of years ago talked about the need to update the downtown master plan, which was just for sort of the 3rd Street and a couple of blocks north and south of it. And then also the Northeast Gateway District Plan, which was done in 2009, 2010. And so when we were talking about it, we talked about maybe it's time to look at it as a larger area, a larger study area than just this urban renewal area, to make sure we're identifying everything that we need to identify in the city center that we want to see improvements for the next 20 years. So it's a little bit larger study area than when you see here. It goes south a little bit more and it goes north a little bit more, but it encompasses the whole urban renewal area, you see. And then from that discussion, what should happen is we go through a process with the community, talk about what the community wants to see in this area over the next 20 years, what types of infrastructure improvements we need to support that vision. And then we talk about whether the funding tool, which is the urban renewal plan, needs to be amended to support that.
Okay, thank you for that explanation. And then I guess with respect to this 3rd Street improvement, where is that funding? Is that included in this packet as well?
The 200,000 is included in this, which would be the urban renewal contribution to this phase of the project. The 850,000 that we got from the federal earmark from Congresswoman Salinas, that has gone to ODOT because they're the oversight agency for those funds, and they're going to be the lead on the next phase of this in terms of the construction documents. So they're leading that process. We're in partnership with them. That's the agreement that came to City Council a couple months ago or a month ago. And then the 200,000 that we have will contribute into that.
Okay. And I just know that people are eagerly anticipating that. Is it going to occur in this?
We're all eagerly anticipating that.
Right, I think people are tired of waiting for it. So will it begin to occur in 26, 27?
The construction documents or construction?
The construction documents?
Yes, I knock on wood, right?
Okay,
We can't control the speed of ODOT.
I understand, yeah. They're own. Thank you, Chair.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, so now, any interested audience members are invited to provide comments on the proposed budget for the urban renewal district. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes per person. Public testimony received through the city website or emails will be added to the public record of the meeting. If you are on Zoom and wish to speak, please use the raise your hand feature or chat feature and send a chat to Claudia. Once your turn is up, we will announce your name and unmute your mic. To ensure fairness, we will alternate between participants who signed up in person and those who registered via Zoom. Please announce your name and the city you live in for the record. We will start with those who have registered. Claudia, is anyone?
No one has registered.
Okay. All right, moving on. Do I have a motion to approve the proposed budget as presented to approve the tax increment?
So moved.
Second.
So it is moved by Budget Committee Member Peralta and seconded by Budget Committee Member Geary that the Budget Committee of the McMinnville Urban Renewal Agency has reviewed and hereby approves the budget for the 2026-2027 fiscal year in the amount of $3,872,310. Oh, $810. I guess I misread that. The committee also approves tax increment for the maximum amount of revenue that may be raised by dividing the taxes for the McMinnville Urban Renewal Plan area under Section 1C, Article 9 of the Oregon Constitution and ORS Chapter 457. Claudia, can you conduct a roll call?
Counselor Benner?
Aye.
Committee Member Mann?
Aye.
Counselor Geary?
Aye.
Committee Member Frost?
Aye.
Counselor Cunningham?
Aye.
Committee Member Ernst?
Aye.
Counselor Tukolsky?
Aye.
Committee Member Chisholm?
Aye.
Counselor Chenoweth?
Aye.
Council President Peralta?
Yes.
Mayor Morris?
Aye.
And Chair Maxfield?
Aye. That was unanimous, correctly? Correct. The URA budget for the 2026-2027 fiscal year is approved unanimously. Okay, now I need a motion to cancel the May 18th, 2026 URA Budget Committee meeting.
With pleasure. So moved.
Second.
So that was Counselor Geary who made the motion. It was seconded by Counselor Chenoweth. Claudia, can you conduct a roll call?
Counselor Benner?
Aye.
Committee Member Mann?
Aye.
Counselor Geary?
Aye.
Committee Member Frost?
Aye.
Counselor Cunningham?
Aye.
Committee Member Ernst?
Aye.
Counselor Tukolsky?
Aye.
Committee Member Chisholm?
Aye.
Counselor Chenoweth?
Aye.
Council President Peralta?
Yes.
Mayor Morris?
Aye.
And Chair Maxfield?
Aye. The May 18th, 2026 URA Budget Committee meeting has been canceled unanimously. Can I have a motion to cancel the May 21st, 2026 URA Budget Committee meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, so it was moved by Counselor Benner and seconded by Counselor Chenoweth. Claudia, can you conduct a roll call?
Counselor Benner?
Aye.
Committee Member Mann?
Aye.
Counselor Geary?
Aye.
Committee Member Frost?
Aye.
Counselor Cunningham?
Aye.
Committee Member Ernst?
Aye.
Counselor Tukolsky?
Aye.
Committee Member Chisholm?
Aye.
Counselor Chenoweth?
Aye.
Council President Peralta?
Yes.
Mayor Morris?
Aye.
And Chair Maxfield?
Aye. The May 21st, 2026 URA Budget Committee meeting has been canceled unanimously. There being no further business to come before the committee, I will now adjourn the Urban Renewal Agency Budget Committee meeting at 6:38 p.m. I'm glad you appreciated that. As a lefty. Okay, I think what do you think? Do you feel like we need a break, or should we just keep on going? Okay, awesome, I agree. I will now call the Budget Committee meeting to order and request that Claudia do a roll call.
Counselor Benner?
Aye.
Committee Member Mann?
Present.
Counselor Geary?
Good evening.
Committee Member Frost?
Aye.
Counselor Cunningham?
Here.
Committee Member Ernst?
Here.
Counselor Tukolsky?
Still here.
Committee Member Chisholm?
Here.
Counselor Chenoweth?
Aye.
Council President Peralta?
Here.
Committee Member Harmon Ferry is absent this evening. Mayor Morris?
Here.
And Chair Maxfield?
Here. I will begin by turning the time over to our city attorney for a few clarifications.
Thank you. You might remember that in the opening at our last meeting, you were cautioned to not hold deliberations with each other outside of this public meeting. We were asked to determine the underlying legal authority, rationale, veracity of that statement. It comes directly out of the state's local budget handbook, but it appears to be based on a best practice rather than a requirement. I'm going to take just a quick moment to describe that for you. Many of you, especially those on council, understand the idea of serial meetings and where that comes from. Just in case you don't, deliberations in this context, need to occur in a public meeting. However, if you have conversations outside of a public meeting, that becomes an illegal public meeting. If a quorum of the budget committee deliberates on something that is an illegal public meeting, because we haven't noticed it and held it here together. There's a concept called a serial meeting whereby if that deliberation is passed from one group of two, and one of them takes it on to another group of two, and one of them takes it on to another group of two, if that concept, that discussion becomes a quorum, despite anybody's efforts in that space, despite any of their intentions, that is an illegal public meeting. And you could be personally, each of you, liable for having participated in that illegal public meeting. That is why it tends to be a best practice to recommend non-deliberation outside of the meeting. You don't always know what the other person is going to do and who they're going to talk to and how this might spread. It could very well be out of your control and you will still be personally liable. With that understanding, this is a best practice and a caution. It is not a requirement.
Thank you. I just also wanted to clarify that we are going to return to discussion on Culture, Parks, and Recreation on Monday. So they're going to follow up with some of our questions, and if there's more discussion or questions people had, there will be more time. Also, there will be time for public comment on Monday. Today, we won't have time for public comment concerning the city budget. And now we will continue hearing department budget presentations. I'm going to remind you to speak into the mic and also save your questions and comments until the end of each department's presentation. And I'll turn the time over to City Manager Garvin.
Thank you. And first up for our presentations tonight, we have Community Development Director Heather Richards, and following that will be Public Works Director Gia Hunsaker.
Great, so good evening, Chair and Budget Committee members. I wanted to share with you the Community Development Department's budget, and in so doing, also talk to you a little bit about how the Community Development Department is structured. So the Community Development Department is comprised of the Planning Division, the Building Division, Code Compliance, and Housing. And then we also staff the Urban Renewal Agency, as you just heard, and we have the customer service for the Community Development Center as a whole. You will see as we go through the funds that they're all responding into those different programs. Oh, that's right. Excuse me. I have to get used to not driving. So where is community development in the budget? It's actually in several different places. In terms of the general fund, the Community Development Fund is 0107. And then in 2018, when we were directed to do full cost recovery for our planning services for the development community, we divided that Community Development Fund very distinctly into these sub-funds so that we could understand the cost for each distinctive different program in there. So you will see there's a sub-fund for administration, there's a sub-fund for current planning, there's a sub-fund for long-range planning, code compliance, and economic development. Then we also have funds in other places other than the general fund. So the 08 fund is affordable housing, and the Fund 70 is building, and we just went through Fund 58 and 59, which is urban renewal. In terms of the general fund, we work really hard to try and be as diverse as we can in terms of the funding we're bringing into our programs, and to be less and less reliant on the general fund, noting the pressures on it. So this year, the city manager asked all of us as department heads to go into our funds and take a look at every line item and get it down to sort of the base level of service needs that we have for each line item and look at it with that lens. Going through that effort, in terms of the previous year for the budget for the Community Development Fund, we had $2.6 million. This year, you're going to see it's $2.2 million, so that we were able to reduce it by $400,000. That was done in a couple of different ways. We were looking at, we've done some restructuring in terms of our personnel, and I'll walk you through that. And then in terms of materials and services, and I'll walk you through this as well, we did some, we got grants to do most of our long-range work planning work that then took reliance off the general fund. So I always like to share a little bit about what's going on with permitting because our fund is dependent upon what's going on in the development world, especially for current planning and building, since those are building fees that fund those programs. So every year I show you our McMinnville housing permits that we've had for the past till 2000, so now the past 25 years, to sort of show you what's happening. And we try to look at these trends to forecast for the next year. So I will do a forecast of what I think is going to happen in terms of development in the community that engineering uses to help them forecast their permitting revenue, building uses, and others use as well. So in terms of housing permits, those that are in dark blue are single, what we call single dwelling unit permits that we issued, and those that are in tan are what we call multi-dwelling units that we issued. And you can see that those years where we have spikes in our housing permits, it's when we generally have a couple of multifamily projects that are in the program. But you will also see in terms of the single dwelling permits, those have really gone down since 2007 consistently. And in fact, last year, we only issued 26 of those and no multifamily housing permits. So when we're looking at what are the trends for permitting for the next year, these are the types of things we're looking at. In addition to that, is this working? Or are you doing it for me, Claudia? Oh, great. So we have, the state tells us how many housing permits we're supposed to be issuing every year to meet what the state allocates to us as a housing demand for population forecast. And so the last time we did a housing needs analysis, our 2001 housing needs analysis that was for our 2003 to 2023 UGB amendment, we were assigned 250 housing permits per year is what we were supposed to be issuing. And that was based on historic trends. So historically, we had been at that trend. We have not been at that trend for the last 20 years. And so that creates a deficit according to, the housing production that we're supposed to be doing. And right now, we estimate that deficit to be about 1,100 housing units for the community. This is a chart of the home construction, so permits issued per decade in McMinnville. And it demonstrates just how McMinnville has grown and when it has grown the most. I hear a lot about how much growth is occurring now in McMinnville, and the stats don't necessarily prove that out. What I see happening in McMinnville is we have very limited buildable land supply. It's concentrated in areas, and people are seeing a lot happen in those areas. And so that feels like a lot to people, especially out by Baker Creek Road and Hill Road, where we've had a lot of development in the last couple of years, and then in the West Hills as well. But if you look at this, in the 70s, we issued 2,166 permits. In the 90s, we issued 2,677 housing permits. The 2000 knots, we issued 2,327 permits. And then the decade of 2010 to 2019, we issued 1,363 permits. So this shows what the average was per year in terms of that marker that we've been trying to achieve of 250 units. And it also explains why we were assigned 250 units per year in our housing needs analysis by the state, because that's what we were doing historically. The other thing we look at is, okay, that's the trends for housing permits that we've seen historically. What does it look like in terms of buildable land that we have left in the city limits that people can actually build on? And we've been watching this very closely over the last many years. So that buildable lands inventory map that you see there, anything that's in what I would call the light green color, that is in our urban growth boundary. So that's not in the city limits yet, and it's not ready for development. That's the land that we're working on in terms of area planning efforts right now to get that to a place of being entitled so it can come into the city. Anything that you see in blue, some shade of blue, that's employment land that is considered vacant or partially vacant. And then those properties that you see in yellow, salmon, or red and pink are properties that are considered vacant or partially vacant for housing. So if you look at the ones that are there for housing, you will note that this is a land update that was done through 2021, I believe, 2023. And you will note that up there by Baker Creek and Hill Road, that's already been developed out. That's the Lennar development. So that's showing as buildable land, but it's no longer buildable. What we have up there right now is the Oak Ridge Meadows subdivision, which has 108 lots. We've had about 5 permits pulled on those in the last year. So let's say there's 100 lots left there. And then with the other subdivision that we have in town that are now going to permits, that's the Holt Homes subdivision that's in the West Hills that you see there, that's yellow and orange. And that's 392 lots. They expect to build that out over the next 5 to 6 years. They've told us if the market keeps up. And so we're looking at about 70 to 80 permits in that subdivision per year. And then there's the Elysian subdivision, which is the Brian Rudin subdivision that he just pulled his first permit is in right now for that subdivision. There's 18 lots and he expects to build that out over 2 years. So that's what we have left, really, in terms of subdivisions and lots to build. Last Tuesday night, we did an annexation for a property and approved a tentative subdivision for 9 lots, and so we're bringing that in our inventory as well. But to be able to, pick out these individual subdivisions like this and identify them as the subdivisions of our near-term future, that's somewhat concerning. I've been a community development director for 20 years, and to be able to do that in a community of this size is demonstrative of how little buildable land there actually is in McMinnville right now. So that's a total of 527 lots. We expect that will be built over the next 5 years, and that's about 100 units per year, if you want to think of it that way. We have some smaller pieces that people are doing minor partitions on as well, so those will come in. And then we are working on multifamily because, as you saw from that chart, multifamily is a disruptor in terms of that downward trend of housing permits and brings units online. But I can share with you, as you well know, anytime we have a multifamily project that's coming through the Planning Commission, we have a lot of opposition from the neighborhood to that project. So we try to think of what's in the pipeline for the multi-dwelling projects. And then we also, the other disruptor in terms of development fees would be anything that's a large commercial or industrial project. A large commercial or industrial project could really put a spike into the permitting fees for building, planning, and engineering. And usually we know about those in advance because we're talking with those groups as they're putting their projects together. And we're doing a lot of due diligence with them before they come in the pipeline so we can estimate if they're going to be coming in the next fiscal year or not. So all of those different data pieces go into our forecasting for the permitting fee revenue that you see. So for the previous year budget, the year that we're in right now, we forecasted about $735,000 for building permit revenue. This is showing how it's working within that. And then this current year, we're budgeting about $848,000. So we do know of a couple of larger commercial projects that are coming in, some multifamily projects as well. And so we bumped it up just a little bit from last year's. So let's talk about the programs themselves. So current planning, the revenues for current planning come from development fees. It is meant to be a full cost recovery program. However, there is a general fund subsidy to the program. The City Council by policy has elected to reduce some of the fees of the program for the local community and subsidize it with the general fund by policy. The core services in this program is there's application review that occurs, application decisions which are issued. This program supports the quasi-judicial public process and also ensures that all the projects are compliant with state and local regulations. This is a program that's required by state law that the city has, so you either have your own program or the state will provide a program for the community, and the fees are relative to how much it costs to provide the program, whether it's local or state run. Most cities choose to have this as a local program because the customer service at the local level is presumably better in terms of the relationships and the local knowledge. So in terms of fiscal year 27, the focus will be on new housing laws. There's been a series of very, very large bills that have gone through the legislature in the past couple of years, hundreds of pages of bills changing housing laws. We're not caught up to that at all. It is making significant disruptions in our process and being able to review projects. And so I'll share with you how we're going to approach that and what our focus will be. But the focus for fiscal year 27 is getting the programs caught up and becoming compliant with all those new state laws. In terms of fiscal year 26, the staffing level was 3.05 FTE, and that remains the same for 27 in this program. All of our planners work in both current planning and long-range planning. We don't have a large enough staff to create individual teams for each program. Long-range planning, and that's why this is separated from the current planning. The revenues for that is the general fund, so long-range. So current planning is meant to be full cost recovery because it's private development that you're serving, so they should be paying for their own services. The taxpayer shouldn't be picking that up. Long-range planning is for the community, so presumably the general fund is paying for that. So the revenues you see in the long-range planning program is general fund. We do work really hard to go after any grant we can find. For our long-range planning program for this fiscal year 27, you see $241,000 of grants in there. That's 3 grants that we've applied for and received. So those are grants we know we are getting that are going to come in that fiscal year. We're working on some other grants right now, but we don't budget them until we know that we're getting them. New for fiscal year 27 is we created a fee in lieu of tree mitigation program, and so you're going to see in their revenues and expenses for that program as well. Last year, we collected $265,000 for that program, and then you'll see an expense in there of the same amount so that if we need to expense it, we can. We'll be working with City Council on what that program looks like and how we'll be moving that forward. In terms of core services for long-range planning, the long-range planning program supports community engagement. This is where you see the project advisory committee work, where you see the open houses, the surveys, things of that nature in terms of the long-range plans that the team is working on. The team also, this is where we support our committees. So we have 6 standing committees that meet monthly. So we support 8 meetings a month for these committees. Every month, and then that means, propping up the staff reports, the logistics of running the meeting, and the decisions that are made there. And then this is also the program that supports the growth planning that we've been doing over the last many years to get caught up on our growth planning, our specialty area planning. So we've done the 3 Mile Lane area, we've done the Fox Ridge Road area, and we're now working on the Southwest area. This is also where we do development code management. So anytime we want to amend the development code, we put it into our long-range planning program and take that through a community stakeholder process and bring it to City Council through our adoption process. And then we also are working under state regulatory compliance here. So this is where we have all those housing laws that are starting to come at us in terms of the different types of programs that we need to be propping up. We've had a lot more in the last couple of years for our housing program. That's why we now have this sort of separate housing arm. in terms of reports that we need to provide and planning efforts that we need to do on an annual basis. And then the long-range planning program is also where we support urban renewal. So the 26 staffing for this program was 2.80 FTE. For the 27 staffing, it's going to be 3.05 FTE because we're shifting some of our planning managers' position into this, more into this program to support our housing needs. So code compliance is a separate fund, a sub-fund in the Community Development Fund. It is funded entirely through the general fund. This is the program that we reduced in half 2 to 3 budget years ago, and we've retained it at that level now. And the budget you see in front of you continues that reduction. The core services for this program is code compliance, so it's mostly a property nuisance code compliance program, but it does serve building, planning, and engineering code compliance as well. It's a responsive program, so since we reduced it in half, we don't have the capacity to do proactive code compliance. This is strictly a responsive program at this point in time, 100%. We do work towards voluntary compliance in the program, and we have a success rate of 95% plus every year for voluntary compliance, so that's good to see. And then when we first established the program, it is entitled Code Compliance and Community Relations. It was important to us that this wasn't just penal, that it was working with neighborhoods on, cleaning up the neighborhoods and working with Recology and other partners to do cleanup weekends and things like that. Since we've gone into a reduction in staffing levels, we haven't done the community relations programs in the last year. I'm hoping we're able to bring that back over the next year as we work on capacity and efficiencies in the program with the staffing that we have. So the 26 staffing for that was 1.23 FTE, and that remains the same moving forward. So it has 1 FTE in it, and it has support from myself and also our administrative person. And then economic development is a new sub-fund that we put together a couple of years ago. And this is a fund where the revenues are grant funds and a little bit of general funds. So this was to respond to some of the special projects that we generated through the ARPA program, and then also the legislative work that we started doing a couple of years ago. The core services in this fund is special projects. So you will see in the fiscal year 27, the special project we're working on is the remaining work on the ADA transition plan that's funded through this fund. And those are ARPA funds. And then the legislative work that we do is also coming out of this fund. And what's different about this year in terms of personnel, the fiscal year 27 does not bring that full-time FTE that was in this fund previously forward. So the special projects manager that we had through for fiscal year 26 is not funded in fiscal year 27. So what we've done is we've put $50,000 into professional services so that we can continue to support the legislative work. That $50,000 will be for if we need to prop up brochures or flyers or any of the other type of work that FTE was doing for us that we don't have the capacity to bring into other people's positions. Now, the building fund is Fund 70. This isn't an enterprise fund, but it operates like one. So the intention of the building fund is it's full cost recovery, and that's by state law. And so the revenues for this is permit fees. It's 100% fee supported, so the money coming in to support the program stays in the program, rolls over and stays in the program, much like an enterprise fund does as well. The policy goal for this fund is to have a 12-month reserve. This program runs very lean and mean. We have zero redundancy in terms of staffing in this program. Each skill set is 1 FTE per skill set. And so if something happens, we need to be able to move forward as necessary. And that's why we wanted to have the 12-month reserve there. In terms of core services, this program is doing building permit intake, it's doing building permit review, permit coordination, building inspections. It's responsible for all certificates of occupancy that are delivered, and it's also where we house our ADA coordinator. The focus for fiscal year '27 will be succession planning. This is a team of 4, and we're very lucky to have that team that we have, but we do need to start thinking about succession planning. These positions for our building program are really, there's no pipeline for them right now in the state. And so we're going to need to be really creative as to how we create that pipeline for McMinnville. We've been very lucky with the building official that we have right now. He's been on a temporary contract for the last 7 years. When we first visited with him and I had breakfast with him, I said, just give me at least 6 months to get me somewhere, and he has stayed with us. So that's great, and Stuart, if you're listening, we want you to do another 7 years. But we do need to be very creative about how we approach this program. So the staffing level remains is 4.34 for fiscal year '26, and then fiscal year '27, it's 4.84. So when I shared with you the planning program went up by 2.5 FTE, this program's going up by 0.50 FTE, and the economic development program went down by 1. We've done some restructuring, and I'll talk you through what that looks like as part of our a proposal for you tonight. Before that, though, I want to talk about the last fund, which is our Affordable Housing Fund. This is 08. So the revenues for this fund is not on the general fund at all. So the last 2 funds I've talked about aren't on the general fund. This fund is revenues are the Affordable Housing Construction Excise Tax and grants. So in fiscal year '27, you will see there's $400,000 in there from our Community Development Block Grant. That's our housing rehabilitation program that we've been working on for the past 2 years. The core services in this program is affordable housing support. And so what that looks like is moving the housing production strategy forward. So that was one of the new state mandates from the state, was to put together a housing production strategy. And it got approved by the state this past year, and now we need to move it forward. It has 16 actions in it, and we're committed to the years in which we're doing those actions and moving that forward. It's also where we're going to do housing grant implementation. So we did get some grants for housing, and that will be in here as well. We will be starting our construction excise tax program, where we will be soliciting project ideas for how to deploy grant funds into affordable housing projects over this next year. And then this is also where we fund all of our state reporting that we have to do. We have about 4 or 5 reports now that we have to do for the state for our housing programs. So our fiscal year '27 focus will be that housing production strategy implementation. We have 4 actions we're working on for that this year, and then the housing rehab grant. The '26 staffing for this had 1 FTE that was fully funded in this program. Our recommendation for the fiscal year '27 staffing is 0.7 FTE. And there's a reason why that reduces a little bit. So I wanted to share with you what the change requests were that I submitted to city leadership, and then the one that's in your program today. So in the past several years, we've submitted the same change requests because these are needs that we have and don't have funding to do. And these aren't in any priority. So one would be document scanning and imaging. If you've been in the Community Development Center, we are very paper heavy. We have all the permit files, we have building plan sets, and probably I would say 1/3 of the real estate of that building is encumbered in filing. And we would love to get that into digitization. So get all those files on get those digitized so that we can create an online file as a resource for our community. We're always getting called and asked for, the records of past decisions or plans or permits. But it also will create space for more staffing workstations as the city's needs grow for that. So we don't have staffing capacity to do the scanning. We've tried that a couple of years and it just hasn't worked. And so that we really are recommending that would be a third-party vendor, and estimated that would be $87,500. We also have been in a position where we're supporting longer lobby hours at the Community Development Center now. So we went from 20 hours of the lobby being open to 40. That has created some disruption in terms of our staffing capacity and the work that's taking place there. And so we did ask for a half-time FTE to support that, so that the customer service person could do that 100%. And then the work that that customer service person was doing in the time the lobby wasn't open would be able to shift to this half-time FTE, so that we could get that work done. We also asked for a one FTE for a GIS specialist. We do not have a GIS program in our planning program. That's very unusual for a city this size. We have one GIS specialist for the whole city in the Public Works program. And we, to be able to do the long-range planning and really have the right data to do it, GIS is such an important resource and tool to bring what you need as decision makers, what the consequences would be or the opportunities in terms of how the decisions are made, and also for us as the evaluators as well. So that was one request. And then the last request was an FTE for what we call a development permit coordinator. We have heard often and also share the same frustrations of, we have 3 teams working on development. They're all working very lean. They're all very oversubscribed in terms of planning, building, and engineering. And so the coordination of those teams and the permits that they're working on could be improved. And it would improve external delivery to our customers, so they're getting one point of contact, one set of comments, and also internally. We often get submittals about a project where the civil plan set doesn't match the site plan, which doesn't match the landscape plan. Site plan's going to building, civil's going to engineering, landscape's going to planning. We're all reviewing our individual plans, but they don't actually line up with each other and they're in conflict. And nobody is able, we're not finding that layers because they're being presented differently and through different panels into the Community Development Center. So it creates a lot of frustration on both sides because the civil is now asking for changes on the civil plan, which is impacting the 2 other elements that are happening. This development permit coordinator would be able to take the submittals, make sure everything matches initially before time's put into review, send it out to the different teams, collect the comments, make sure the comments line up with each other, and then send it back out to the customer. And that would create efficiencies for everyone. So the proposal that I ended up bringing forward, I was assured that we wouldn't be able to get additional funds into the Community Development Department, was a restructuring of our staff and the funding that we had for fiscal year 26. So as I shared with you, my recommendation was not to move the special projects manager position forward anymore. And and the priority would be to bring in that development permit coordinator, so trade those positions. The development permit coordinator would be funded 50% through the building fund, 25% through the engineering fund, and 25% through the planning fund. We're also recommending to shift some responsibilities around. We're recommending that the planning manager be funded 25% out of the affordable housing fund, so that 08 fund, and then that housing planner, which was full-time into the housing fund, only be 50% out of the housing fund. So now you have this lead manager who's participating in that program and helping it move forward. You have 50% of the associate planner, and then the other 50% of that associate planner be a GIS specialist. So how do we bring that skill set into the program without increasing the fees? So the staff restructuring looked at roles, responsibilities, and funding into these programs. We feel it's responsive to the current issues that we're hearing and seeing, and it maintains a cost-neutral impact to the general fund. We just talked about that. And so this tells you how that works across the board for those 4 different FTEs, and the classifications that there currently are and our proposed classifications moving forward in the funding sources. So we went through, I worked with the finance team, and we went through an analysis of what that impact would be to the general fund, and it was determined that it was nominal in terms of those movements across the board of the allocations. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
I have a question.
Mayor Morris?
So in the 50,000 for, on page 166, under professional services, it says temp services for elimination of special projects manager. You did say that's for printing and information for legislative. Does that also include a lobbyist?
No, so the lobbyist is funded out of the city manager's fund or the administration fund?
Okay.
Yeah. So the 50,000 is for all the behind-the-scenes work that is done to support the legislative efforts. I don't think that there is a lot of work done there to support the sort of immediacy and need to respond to the call. I need a brochure that I can put on the floor tomorrow to everyone, and putting that all together and being able to get that out the door. So it's having the ability to have someone that we can call on to do that when we don't have the capacity in our remaining staff levels.
So that it won't just be for printing, it'll be for some professional contracted services, whether that's, our current lobbyist contract having, some additional workload, or, design team that can turn around a legislative flyer in 24 hours notice, and then also getting that printing expedited. So when you guys go to the Capitol, you have what you need to present in your 15-minute sessions with legislators.
Thank you.
Counselor Peralta?
Thank you. Yeah, I'm just going to comment. I don't know if the mayor was getting at this, but that seems like a really big number for lobbying materials from my perspective.
It's not just the materials, it's also quarterbacking, setting up all those meetings, and the staff time that Jody put into that. So I did meet with Doug Riggs before we built this budget and asked him if he'd be interested in any additional workload. He is. We didn't land on a number for anything, but this was to give us some flexibility. It's not that we intend to spend all this, but we wanted to make sure we had an adequate number in there that gave us maximum flexibility to take advantage of the 27 legislative cycle where we have the Senate and House minority leaders, so we can make sure we're not going into that session without the proper funding to make a large ask.
And to be honest, that's actually less than the general fund was paying into Jody's position for the hours that she put into the legislative work. So Jody's position was very time-oriented in terms of how we reported the billable hours. So every hour that she spent every hour that she worked, she billed into a particular project. So we were able to track it. And that was less than that. My fear is the expectation is that we will still be able to support the legislative program like we have in the past. And quite frankly, we won't be able to do that with our existing staff capacity without some external help.
Got it.
Counselor Chenoweth?
2 questions. Thank you, Chair. First, there's been some back and forth through the years that I've been on council as to where code compliance is going to reside. Have we solidified that it's staying here, or is it still up in the proverbial punted football that it could be moving to another department?
I'm going to defer that to the city manager because that discussion took place earlier this year.
Okay.
Yeah, I did have a discussion with Cord and Heather about where it should sit between PD and CDD. At this time, for this upcoming fiscal year, we're going to keep it in CDD and see how it does with some different staffing in that position. But I would say it's not set in stone. We want to see how it goes.
And then question 2 on the ask for, and this is probably going to our IT director, but on the ask for scanning of documents, you're asking for $87,500 to scan those documents through a third-party vendor. What's the expected ongoing costs of data retention and the
Oh,
like?
and I want to clarify. So we were asked to submit, to show to you what our whole ad packages were and then what was actually funded. So that slide represented the ad packages that I presented. The only thing that was funded was the development permit coordinator.
Great. I still would like to know how much that's going to cost going forward in terms of IT, in terms of retaining that data in the cloud and so forth. or wherever it is we store that kind of stuff here.
Yeah, we'd have to get together and look at that, the quote. I don't have that number at my fingertips to tell you the ongoing cost. I know it's not on-prem, so it's not going to be a tax on our infrastructure, but as Director Richard mentioned, we just don't have the capacity, not so much technologically, but in terms of resources and time to execute that project and having it cloud hosted. I'll get that number out of there and pull it out and get that back to you.
Yeah, 'cause for this counselor, that is actually something that I think is important and should be done. And so I know it's not something that's been asked for. I know it's something that was taken out, but I want to understand the full implications, whether we talk about it now or we talk about it in a future potential ad package later, date sometime down the road. I really would like to know what those costs look like. Please, thank you.
I have another question.
Mayor Morris?
Heather, can you tell me what you're thinking with having the last budget for abatement, page 163? So it shows last year, 5,300, and then now you have abatement for the total of hearings officer and abatement for 33,000. Can you just explain to me your thoughts on the increase?
Yeah, so the current year budget we're in right now has 14,000 for that program, and we actually are looking at maybe bumping it a little bit up. This is responding to some of the larger property nuisance needs that are currently happening in McMinnville. So we have a couple of properties which have become significant nuisance properties that we've had to do abatement for, and we did not have the funds to move some of the abatements forward this fiscal year until we had a discussion. So I met with the city manager, and we determined that we needed to fund more into that so we could get those properties taken care of.
Okay, thank you.
Counselor Geary?
Yeah, I have some questions, but on that, following up on that, so that was part of one of my questions was that line. it just, the rise in abatement costs while also the throttling down of capacity in that department. Do you see that higher abatement costs being a function of that? So we're going to use those abatement services to offset the staff time where we try and get voluntary compliance?
No, I don't actually. So it's reflecting some of the increasing issues that we're seeing in the community that cost more in terms of abatement. Our voluntary compliance is, we don't abate properties unless it's in a non-voluntary compliant state, and it's the last thing we do. And in terms of the voluntary compliance, we're still achieving the 95% even with limited staffing. But the types of properties and the types of abatements we're doing are more intense and more expensive.
Yeah, it's just that that last 5% is the 90% of what we hear about. So
Yes, it is, on a repeated basis.
yeah, not being afraid to use the funds that we have in the budget, I think will be helpful on that last 5%.
Yeah, and I think that's the city manager's goal too.
To build on that, Councilor Geary and Budget Committee members, it's similar to what we saw with tow fees around motorhomes and how we had to ramp that up to really get ahead of it instead of being so reactive and letting things build and build. I asked Heather to put something forward that she could move forward with her code enforcement team without having to hesitate on if we should blow this budget line item or not. So I want to make sure we had some room there.
Right.
Mayor Morris?
Can you remind me where we're at with the code compliance position?
Well, I'm hoping she's not listening tonight.
Oh.
Because now she knows it may not be permanent. But we have made an offer, and it starts June 29th.
Thank you.
Counselor Geary?
Thank you. So on your slides, you had, you stated there's a budgeted line, $265,000 anticipated for the fee in lieu of tree removal. Is that correct?
So the fee in lieu, so this is budgeting that doesn't work with my mindset, which is project management. The 265 came in last year in revenue, and you're seeing expense in the expense side of this year's budget in case we want to spend it. I don't think we forecasted any additional revenue because we don't know if we're going to get that or not. But I wanted to point out that that was a revenue source from last year. That it's a fee collected to do a particular program, so it needs to stay within the program and sort of push forward the expense.
Okay.
That makes sense.
Yes, that does. The one FTE associate planner GIS specialist, that one FTE, that's half and half out of two different funds, is that correct?
Yes, thank you. So 50% Affordable Housing Fund, the '08 fund, and then 50% the Long Range Planning Fund.
And so the half of that affordable housing fund that's meeting whatever needs we need, requirements associated with that fund, that GIS specialist will spend half that time working on affordable housing related projects?
Yes, if we can find that unicorn.
If we can what?
Find that unicorn person.
Okay. And what's the total cost of that? And then is it a straight 50-50 split?
Yes, it's a straight 50-50 split.
And the total cost of that FTE, do you know?
I don't.
For the FTE itself or for the whole change?
For that whole FTE GIS specialist?
I should have the estimate in my
156?
156.
Thank you.
Is that close?
Yeah, I don't have the number for that one. In total, it added up to 3,700 was the negligible effect of all of the changes combined.
Understood. But just that one?
Yeah, so the fully loaded position, based on, we haven't hired it, right?
Understood.
And placed it into its appropriate step in the classification. So we always estimate
Mid-step.
mid-step in the classification. It's 156 loaded.
Very good. And then lastly, I guess talk me through the building department project, let's see, development permit coordinator. That's a 0.5 FTE to do that.
So they're paying for 50% of it. It's one FTE.
One, yeah.
Yeah, and the building fund is paying for 50%, the planning fund is paying for 25%, and the engineering fund is paying for 25%.
Okay. And how do you anticipate measuring the success of that position?
That's a great question. So we're actually meeting internally to talk about that and how we want to, one, prop that up the right way, and then also have that discussion of performance measurement. And we're also cognizant of the other discussion that's taking place in the community of a need for a business concierge. And we don't feel that this position is that. It's really looking at that coordination of the permit as it moves through the system, both internally and externally. So the details of it, we haven't put that piece together yet. It's dependent upon whether it gets funded.
Because it seems to me there's sort of two potential outcomes you'd measure. One is easier, right? It's like faster turnaround time. Instead of an 8-week process,
less
it's a 5-week.
revisions, right?
Less revisions, less back and forth, which equals more time.
Yep.
But then there's also sort of the less measurable metric of that was a better process. These look better. I had less of a headache.
Less complaints, maybe.
Less complaints, right.
Yes.
So I'd just be curious if we move forward on that, what that metric of success is, and if it is faster permits and in 2 years we haven't gotten any dent in that, what's the outcome?
Yeah, I mean,
of that
I would say
position?
definitely one, it's hard for me to say faster permits because the speed of permits is dependent upon the quality of the submittal. But I guess what I would say that I think is,
Yeah, I
Are you
agree.
laughing 'cause you
No,
know that?
I'm laughing because I agree.
yeah. And we see a large range. So, but I would say for us, an internal measurement would be, what we see a lot happening is the coordination of the revisions that are required from one team that changes sort of how all the other things operate within each other. And then that then creates more work over here and more work over there, and it's not coordinated that well. So that type of internal coordination efficiency would be a performance measure. I think, I don't know if Jeff agrees with that, but that's one of the reasons why we felt this was a priority of our ask, and the engineering team we've been in discussion about this position for the last, I think we've submitted this 3 years in a row now.
Okay. It's just interesting. I'm not sure throwing a body at it is going to get some of those things, but I think just wanted to hear what we're trying to solve. But
Yeah.
I understand.
If you have ideas, love to hear them.
Yeah?
So,
Okay, thank you.
yeah,
Throughput and efficiency.
yeah.
That's what
But I do want to be cognizant of throughputs dependent upon the quality of the submittal we get, because there's a lot of people who complain about how long it takes, but I can show you the quality of their submittal and why it's taking so long. So that's the reality.
Very good.
Counselor Tukolsky?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So Director Richards, I'll just admit, there's a lot of numbers flying back and forth, a lot of percentages flying around. It's confusing. And I'm confused as to how adding one FTE for a development permit coordinator, one FTE for an associate planner, GIS specialist, and a half FTE for management support leads to essentially a flat headcount in your group.
Yeah, so this slide I have right now, this was a change request submitted. We didn't get these. The only thing we got on this slide was the one FTE for a development permit coordinator. So because we didn't get those, I then looked at our existing staffing and rearranged roles, because the GIS specialist in planning is critical. So I tried to think through how people could serve their roles differently, the existing FTEs that we have, to free up some time for something else. So currently we have vacancies in our program, right? So we have the planning managers vacant. We have Evan Hippis, who's serving as the interim, doing an excellent job. He's our affordable housing planner. And he and I had a lot of discussion about this, and bringing the planning manager into the affordable housing program will create some efficiencies there in terms of that higher level planner, because it's more complicated work. So we don't need an associate planner spending as much time in it. And then we can free up 50% of that associate planner to do GIS. If Evan moves into the planning manager position, that associate planner position's vacant, and then we can go out and hire for that particular unicorn. So it's not a new FTE, that one.
So who's actually paying for the affordable housing?
The
FTEs.
construction excise tax fund is paying for that.
What portion of the, okay, so let me back up and just ask a more general question. What portion of your head count is coming out of the general fund?
Well, that's the tough part, and that's why I pointed out how much I go down to the 10th of an FTE into each fund to show what the work is being done. I'd have to defer to Katie on that, and the different funds have different funding sources supporting them.
I get it. The reason I'm asking the question is because on, what was it, Tuesday we were here? I don't remember. They all blend together. We have a gap to fill in the pool and in the Parks and Rec area, and I believe that it was like 140 some thousand, if someone could remind me.
47.
147. So I guess what I'm looking at is we have $147,000 gap that we're trying to fill. You have the GIS planner is 156. So I don't know if we can forego the GIS planner specialist and fund the pool area that way, or if those funds don't work like that.
The GIS planner was not funded.
Not
Yeah.
funded, okay.
So that's a current position that we have in our FY26 planning that we're repositioning in terms of roles and responsibilities. If you remove that position, I would have one less planner, and I wouldn't have anybody responding to the affordable housing mandates.
Okay.
And I would say, we have weaned ourselves off the general fund every year more and more in terms of trying to bring other revenue sources to bear. So we're bringing in the full cost recovery for the permitting fees, bringing in the construction excise tax to help pay for one of the planners, positioning my position into building an urban renewal. We're doing everything we can to reduce our reliance on the general fund, and we haven't increased our staffing by that much. So we're bringing in additional revenue and reducing our sort of reliance on the general fund in the same time.
I appreciate that. I know that you have a small group of people doing quite a bit, and I do understand that and appreciate that. So I don't want this to sound crass or rude, but I'm just questioning. So like the 0.5 FTE management support, does that also come out of?
That's not funded.
None of these on this
These are not
screen
funded.
except the bottom
So
one.
these are asks?
These were asks that were declined.
Okay, so they'd be adders to the budget?
Yeah. The only one in here that was approved was the one FTE for the development permit coordinator, and that was only approved when I was able to show with my restructuring that it didn't have an impact on the general fund.
Okay.
Counselor Tukolsky, to your point around the associate planner, and I think where the confusion lies is the current affordable housing planner, through Heather's reorganization, would be half-time affordable housing planner and half-time a GIS specialist, but it's the current FTE that's already in this fiscal year's budget. To your point around dollars, half of that's affordable housing funded, so the general fund savings, if you were to eliminate that position, would be half of that 156.
I understand, okay. I guess in general, just for the group here, I'm not questioning why these are asked. I'm trying to find ways that we can keep the budget flat and still fund the pool on a Wednesday. So I'll be asking that question of a lot of people, I'm sure. So, thank you.
Is this?
Counselor Geary, did you have a comment? Oh.
And to your question around planning FTEs out of the general fund, there's 5. Yeah.
But
Counselor Peralta?
they are funded, we don't have 5 FTEs funded by general fund money only. They are funded with current planning permit fees. They are funded with the CET tax. This is the piece that I think is misunderstood every year I stand in front of you. Yes.
Counselor Peralta?
Heather, I just wanted to say thanks for the work that you did to reduce the impact on the general fund from your department by $400,000. You went from 2.6 to 2.2, so it's about a 15% reduction in the general fund impact, and I think that's remarkable considering you're able to provide the same service level and still maybe expand services. So I appreciate you. I appreciate the work that your department did, and I certainly support the budget that you put forward. Thank you.
And I hope it didn't come across that I don't. I'm not trying to say that.
It was not,
Right.
my comment was not directed at you, Councilor.
Okay, thank you.
And it didn't come across that way, Council.
Thank you.
Counselor Benner?
Coming in as a builder, we work with jurisdictions all across the state. And the city of McMinnville is just a joy to work with. Their processing time is quick, their communication is clear, it's digitized. And so from an outsider's perspective, what Heather brings to the table is really good for a builder. And I know that she hears lots of complaints because it doesn't ever go fast enough, and I complain it never goes fast enough. But from an outside perspective, the services that she provides are top-notch.
Counselor Chenoweth?
Yes, that's right. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I meant to ask this the first time I was asking questions after this. This is to our amazing city recorder. I noticed last week, I think it was after a meeting, that the PowerPoint was actually up on the website attached to the meeting for something I was looking for. And today I noticed one of our citizens taking pictures of the PowerPoint. So I thought this would be a good time to ask, is this going forward, can we expect the PowerPoints that are presented here to become part of that online information?
For my city council meetings, I always put the PowerPoints up. I will defer to Adam if that's a standard that we should have across all boards and committee commissions. So staff liaison for the budget committee is Katie.
So the information is online. All of the budget committee meeting information is on the 12th because it's one continuing meeting. It's not multiple meetings. So this presentation is online in the packet for the 12th, which is at the top of, in that packet, it's indicated that it's the packet for the 12th, the 14th, the 18th, and the 21st.
I feel bad that you started out by saying you always have, and I just noticed. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? All right, I will turn it back over to City Manager Garvin to start a new presentation.
Thank Thank you, Chair Maxfield. Next up, we have Public Works Director Jeff Hunsaker, and he'll be going through Public Works in entirety, and you'll have,
I think we want a 5-minute break.
5-minute break?
Sorry, I like to just push through, so you guys gotta let me know, okay?
all right.
So we're gonna take 5-minute break, sorry, Geoff. We're gonna come back at 7:44. You'll hear the gavel.
Recording in progress.
I can't believe our bathroom door isn't ADA. No, I had to let Katie in. I was like, do you need me to wait? And like, she's like, I can get out. And I'm like, how is this? Isn't this one of our newer buildings? There's no push button. That is.
I never use it, honestly, so I had no idea.
All right, we will begin again. Thank you, Director Hunsaker.
Yes, for those that don't know me, my name's Jeff. I also go by Geoff. I've been called both since I was a little kid, so if you hear the Geoff stuff, I've often told people that it's perfectly fine to call me that. So we're gonna be covering Public Works tonight. One of the questions I always get this time of year is where is Public Works in the budget? And we're a bit of a Frankenstein's monster of funding when it comes to Public Works, so we're kind of everywhere. So we have three subsections of the general fund and then multiple other funds. And this is because we have a lot of rules on how we can spend our dollars and how we bring it in because we're funded by all kinds of different things. So I'll go over each of those with each fund. We'll go one after another, and I'll make sure to leave time for questions after each one. So we're going to be here for a little while, but we're going to be efficient like we always are in Public Works. Okay, we're going to start with engineering. So I have 4 wingmen with me tonight. So I have here with me Matt Bernards. He's filling in as our engineering services manager right now, our city engineer. Recently got a position with the city of Corvallis. We're very excited for him, but I'm pulling double duty as the city engineer right now, and Matt's helping me out with the administration of the group. So he's here to answer any questions you all may have as well. So with engineering, where do the revenues come from? It is in the general fund, but kind of similar to planning, it's really funded by other dollars, not the property taxes or typical general fund revenues. We have development fees, just like planning does. We have transfers from other funds, so wastewater, street, others pay for the engineering services that they use. And then we have some grant funding as well. Core services for engineering are development review of plans as well as inspections. So a lot of the construction that happens with subdivisions and things like that is building public infrastructure. So we have to inspect that to make sure that it meets our standards, so we're not taking in subpar infrastructure that's just going to cost our residents in the long run having to pay to fix it. We also do capital project design and management. We have GIS. Emergency management is currently in engineering. And then Public Works Administration, which is me. So if you look for my position, it's in engineering. Our current staffing in engineering is about 9.3 FTE. So we did have a couple of ad packages this year. The one that was approved is a small reorganization. Last year, we added a development program manager. This was a position that was funded by development fees. It was one of the reasons we brought on development fees for engineering. That position was posted pretty much all year long, and we never found a candidate worth hiring. So we are going to do we talked about it a little bit and decided to do a bit of a reorganization for that. So we removed that development program manager. And what we did was we added back a project engineer. So this is a lower level engineer position, which is a little easier to find in the market right now. And then also added a management support specialist. So the cost for the general fund actually only goes up about $11,000. Then since that management support specialist is going to be helping with contracting and things like that, with all the different work we do for streets and wastewater, it's primarily funded out of the street fund and the wastewater services fund. So we lose one position, gain two, but it's mostly paid for by other funds. But it shows up in the engineering fund because of the transfers that happen behind the scenes. So that one was approved by the city manager. We also had one that was not approved. So we have an emergency management coordinator for half-time right now. That position has been funded by ARPA funds over the last 3 years. Those funds are running out, and so they needed to transition to another funding source. So we submitted that as an ad package where general fund would pay for that moving forward. That was not approved. So for next year, the emergency management coordination role will be kind of absorbed by myself and Chief Wood, and the focus will be on training up our staff for incident management teams to staff an EOC during an emergency. That position, Jeff Jacobs has been filling it for the last 3 years. He's done a great job and has completed the goals of that position, which we're getting an updated EOP, or emergency operations plan, an updated COOP, or continuity of operations plan, and then some other work that he's started up, like an emergency management working group, and some other things that we have plans for how to transition to that in the future. We're going to be going over this more with the city council on May 26th in a work session to summarize all the work that's been done in that emergency management program over the last 3 years. But that position would be going away. And as far as budget highlights, we're doing a lot of planning and design work this year. The transportation system plan, wrapping up the wastewater master plan, the 3rd Street improvements design. We have to also help with that, even though it's being designed by ODOT. We have project management and work that we're doing with that. And then the Northeast Gateway sewer design that helps support the development in the Alpine District. There's a bottleneck and some sewer out there right now. And then we have our continued development support. We're assuming steady development fees. We actually brought in quite a bit more than what we budgeted last year. We budgeted about $300,000 for development fees. We brought in closer to $450,000. We think that's going to stay relatively steady, but we were also a little conservative and said it was about $250,000 next year. So we'll see where that lands. We do have some new state mandates for site civil or engineering plans. So right now, planning has a 120-day countdown for a lot of their permits. The state added that 120-day countdown for engineering as well now, so we have to be turning things over for residential at that same time frame. We're going to try to do it for everything. We think we're going to be able to do it, but what might happen is similar to what as Director Richards was discussing, sometimes we get documents that they're not really of a substantial quality, and instead of starting the clock and telling the person all the things they need to do, we're just going to have to let them know this doesn't meet the standard. You got to add these other things before we can start renewing it, because we only have so much time. And then we also, this is something that's not always known, but we do one-call support as well. So when you do the one call for utilities, for construction, our engineering group goes out there with the spray paint and marks where all the sewer and storm pipes are. So with all that, the proposed staffing increase is minimal, goes from 9.3 to 9.5 total in engineering next year. And so that's the quick summary of engineering. So is there any questions on the engineering budget?
Councilor Tucholsky.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. You mentioned there was a GIS specialist or something.
Yes, we have a GIS specialist in engineering.
Yeah, so tell me the difference between your GIS specialist and Heather's GIS ask.
So we only have the one for the entire city.
he right now supports planning as much as he can, but he also has to handle all of the engineering work and public works work and things like that. And there's specific planning needs that he's not able to get to as quick as we'd like. And so that's why Director Richards has that additional ask for some GIS work, because, for example, every time the zoning changes or something, ordinance happens, we have to get that into the system so that it can be found for any future development, so that their staff can timely get through the review of what ordinances and zones and overlays and everything else that occurs.
Okay, and a follow-up question on that, are there reliable and available contract services that could offer that service?
For GIS,
Yeah,
reliable would be in the eye of the beholder, I guess, on that.
I defer to you on that opinion.
There's definitely enough work that we want to have in-house GIS services to be able to have that flexibility. If there wasn't a full FTE person's worth of work, then I'd say it might be worth looking at contract services, but you're going to be paying quite a premium on that, generally for something like that. For an equivalent one FTE is going to be about 3 times the cost if you do it through a consulting firm.
Okay, and you're saying that you have, well, obviously you have use for a 1.0 because you're using them today.
Yes.
I was referring more toward Director Richards' ask of, is it possible to have a contract firm in lieu of a FTE?
I'd have to defer that to Director Richards if that FTE could be handled with a
That's fine.
contract service, but.
And I don't need an answer, it's fine, I'm just,
I just want to share, we did try contracting with the COG 1 year to prop up the planning GIS program, and that didn't deliver the results that we felt were appropriate for the cost.
okay. Well, thank you, and sorry to go on a tangent there, but.
Yeah, no problem. Any other questions on engineering?
Looks like you can continue.
I like how we're starting out. Thank you. So now I'm going to bring up Mr. Renshaw, everybody's favorite.
He always looks excited, too.
As long as he speaks into the mic.
He's my favorite because he says the things I'm too afraid to say. So now we're moving into park and facility maintenance. In your budget book, it just says park maintenance, but when we added centralized facility services a couple years ago, we had to put it somewhere. So our facility staff currently lives in this sub-fund. There has been discussion over the last couple of years about eventually getting to a facility maintenance sub-fund. We're just not there yet. It's quite a bit of work, and finance had more than enough on their plate with the new software this year.
So we do plan on making an internal services fund, much like the IT is, for the facilities. But we want to make sure we do it right, and we make it so that we're charging back all the different departments correctly for the facilities maintenance and all that. And so we opted to do it once we get the new auditors on board and make sure we set it up correctly the first time, so we don't have any issues. So we'll be doing that over the course of the next year.
All right?
Can we get a page number, sorry?
Oh, I'm sorry.
283.
283 to 295.
Thank you.
So, park and facility maintenance, this is funded by just the traditional general fund revenues, the property taxes, franchise fees, et cetera. The core services, they provide parks and ground maintenance. They also do sports field and recreation support. We also handle trees and natural areas, so our undeveloped park properties. And then the park amenities and facility maintenance, and I'm talking the facilities in the parks, such as restrooms. Then with the facilities fund, we do citywide facility maintenance. We're also doing the citywide capital project management for any facilities projects now, and any community event and volunteer support. And then they also help with emergency response operations. So you'll see park staff during a snow event going out and doing things on our sidewalks, icing, things like that. Right now, the staffing is broken up. There's 11.72 FTE. That's 9.72 of that is in park maintenance, and then 2 is in facility maintenance. We did have a change request approved for park maintenance. So last year during cuts, we reduced our seasonal staffing quite a bit. This year, we're proposing to bring it back. So that's an additional 0.7 FTE, which works out to about 1,500 hours of additional seasonal staffing. Now that increase is actually a $0 increase because we reduced our contract services by $42,000. Our parks supervisor, Liz Flazar, went through and did some efficiency analysis on some of the stuff, and we think we can increase the seasonal staffing and decrease the contract services and end up with a better service for the community as a whole. Anything to add?
No, sir.
We did also look at potentially bringing janitorial in-house. So our janitorial contract is up for a renewal this year. We looked at a couple models. We looked at a 2 FTE and a 3 FTE model for that. Those would have cost an additional $31,000 or additional $155,000 annually for the general fund. That model was really looking at a day porter model, so you'd have people during the daytime out doing janitorial services with a little bit of night work being done by additional contract services, things like vacuuming and stuff that are hard to do during the day when we're trying to be open for business. We chose not to move forward with that, partly because of the additional hit on the general fund, but also partially because we had limited staffing resources this year. We were doing a lot of new things. We'll be talking about some of them tonight. And so we didn't think we'd be able to bring it on, especially the 2 FTE model, which would have been quite a lift for 2 people to maintain all the city facilities janitorially. It's going to be, I got one more slide and then we'll jump into the questions for these. So with our budget highlights, we're continuing to focus on maintaining our base level service. There was that base level analysis stuff that was done in the past, and we're pretty close to that base level now. We're trying to do our best to maintain that. We have deferred fleet and asset renewal that's continuing, especially with our park fleet. The park security program that got added a couple of years ago, we are proposing to keep that in there at the same cost, but that's been a successful program for us and been very helpful for our staff and some of the additional burden that was on them for a while there. But park maintenance, they're covering 42 sites and about over 350 acres total, so it's quite a bit. For facility maintenance, we're continuing to build that program where it's a centralized facilities program that Public Works is providing the facility service for the entire city. I'll be talking about the capital program next, but there is that additional $1 million of capital projects in the proposed budget. And in total, we have about 58 city-owned facilities. So with that additional 0.7 FTE for park seasonals, we jump up to about 12.45 FTE total for parks and facility maintenance. So with that, I will go to questions.
Counselor Chenoweth?
Thank you, Chair. Can you go back to that slide where I said I'm confused?
It was around janitorial, correct?
Yes. So what am I missing? It looks to me like it's 120K savings if we go to in-house janitorial. What in this slide presentation, and am I reading incorrectly?
It would have been an additional 31K. So we would have removed the contract. That would have covered most of it, but we would have needed an additional 31K to cover it.
I am no longer confused. Thank you.
All right.
Counselor Curie?
Status update on the budget line item for the Discovery Meadows splash pad renovation. Are we going to be able to knock that out after the hot season?
That's the plan. Yeah, we've got our 90% comments in, waiting for 100% documents, construction documents now, working on the cooperative purchasing resolution to bring to you folks. The plan is to build it after the season, September, October type deal. Very good. I think we're in line to do that.
I'm happy it continues to be money in the budget, and I'll be even happier when we spend that money in the budget for that.
You and me both.
Thank you.
Counselor Tukolsky?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So, Jeff, in the general fund, it talks about park maintenance, and I also had a question about the Discovery Meadows splash pad. It talks about a grant in there. It says professional services grant. I'm on page 293. If anyone-
Yes, it was, that money came from ARPA funds.
Okay, so that's why it says grant.
Yes.
And then in your same page 293 at the bottom, contract services for park maintenance, that seems like a significant decrease from the 2026 amended budget. Can you explain that part?
Yes, again, that was the,
Counselor Tukolsky, what page are you on now?
293, all the way at the bottom. And it's under 778015, contract services for park maintenance.
yeah, so it was a combination of that 43,000 reduction that our parks supervisor found, that she thought we could do the same work with that much less. And then I think last year, some of the facilities maintenance numbers landed in
That's
there,
correct.
and we moved them over to their own facilities maintenance contract services line.
Jeff's exactly right about that.
Okay, that makes sense. And then one other question, I don't know where it went. It was, oh, here it is. It's on 291. It's not a significant number, but 7590 fuel, vehicle, and equipment. Last year we had $30,000, and this year proposed is $23,000. And I know that fuel is not getting cheaper right now. I don't know if that's appropriate or not.
Correct. So most of the budgeting work was done before the significant increases in fuel costs. But the reason for the reduction is we had consistently been over budgeting fuel.
Correct.
And so as part of the direction from the city manager to make sure we're right sizing our budgets and knowing how much money we actually have for all of our services, we reduced it based on historical numbers of what we've been actually spending in fuel.
Thank you.
Basically did a 3-year look back. And as
Great.
Jeff said, this was before the economic turn of events here that's we're all feeling when we fuel our vehicles.
Well, thank you. I appreciate those answers. That's all.
Okay.
Continue.
All right, I like it. Okay, so now we're going to get into the facilities capital improvements. Again, since we don't have a facilities fund, they had to land somewhere, so they're actually in the administration section of the general fund on pages 108 and 109. So that's our that's where our city property work is currently out of in the administration fund. So jumping around a little bit, I'll give you time to flip back to it.
I appreciate the page numbers. Thank you.
One 108.
108, 109.
And when I put those page numbers, those are the paper page numbers that are on the bottom. Okay. So this is essentially an ad package because this is something new that we're doing this year that hasn't been done before. The direction from the city manager was to start doing a more centralized CIP for our facilities work. So we kind of had to come up with a new process. I threw together some ideas, and then David and his team actually worked it out. So this is our first coordinated centralized facilities and parks CIP process that we've done in quite some time. What we did was we combined multiple data sources into one review. We're trying to shift from a reactive maintenance to more of a targeted long-range planning for our maintenance. This is also intended to improve the visibility into our facility needs, our costs, and our priorities. So what we reviewed, so back in 2018, 2019 timeframe, there was a facilities assessment that was done. It had about 470 total projects in it, so that was the big part of what we reviewed. But we also looked at our prior CIP lists that have been done by individual department directors. We looked at what was in the PRO's 5-year plan. We also took input from the building staff that are actually out there. So in that model, we followed what IS does, where they do a meeting with the different department staff every year to see what the needs are going to be from IS. We did the same thing with what the needs are going to be from facilities, so we'd have an updated knowledge of what's happening in those buildings. And then we obviously have our own facility staff, Gianni and Chris, that are out there, and they know it better than anybody because they're seeing what's actually broken day to day. So we went with also their institutional knowledge. So it's a big lift for the whole thing, and we didn't have the time to do all of it. So what we focused on this year was our backlog. That backlog identified about $14 to $18 million worth of work that's in the backlog from what we should have had done but haven't gotten to yet from the 2018 facilities assessment. So that was our starting point. From there, we broke it down into immediate needs, so stuff that we think needs to happen next year, high priorities, stuff that could wait 1 to 3 budget cycles, medium priority, low priority, so on. So those breakdowns are up on the slide there. Using that number of that 14.8 million, it would take us about 5 years to address the entire backlog at a cost of about 2.96 million a year. We didn't have that much money. The direction was to come up with a list that was $1 million. So we identified 50 immediate priority projects. Again, that list is over $1 million. So we had to then prioritize from that what we think made sense to get done throughout the whole, for the whole city. So I do want to point out that we're moving in the right direction. We're spending $1 million on facility needs next year, which is great. But even with the current backlog, it's going to take us over 14 years to just address the backlog. And at that point, we'll have another 14 years of backlog. So just want to be transparent with it. We're moving in the right direction. We're doing the best we can. We're looking for efficiencies, but there is still a considerable amount of facility needs at the city. So with this process for future improvements, we're going to develop a more formal 5-year facilities model that's looking out even further. We want to get to a point where we're creating some kind of project ranking and scoring methodology to help identify for you all why some projects were scored higher than others. We're going to continue to improve our coordination across multiple departments. And another thing that I want to point out is we are in the process of doing our ADA transition plan. That's going to identify all the additional ADA needs that are needed at all our facilities. That's going to only add to the amount of work that needs to be done to the facilities. So the projects that have been added on, they're further broken down on these slides than what's in the budget, because they were grouped a little bit so we can get into the specifics. But one of the questions that came up on Tuesday night was about HVAC for the library. There's where that cost is there. We're focusing on the HVAC control next year. We also have some work that needs to be done to the parking structure. So the parking structure that's over by the county courthouse, that is the city-owned facility. We have to do some sidewalk improvements to the old Chamber House and the Nelson House. We have drainage issues at the Riverside Dog Park that make much of that park unusable during the wintertime when it's very wet, and that actually is one of our most used parks in the system. There's $150,000 for a new modular building for our public works operations staff. Right now, they're in a 1990s school modular. 1991 school modular that has road signs screwed onto the side to cover the holes. So that cost.
Very nice road signs.
They're our nicest road signs we had on hand. That cost is only half the cost. The street fund has the other half of the cost for that. So you'll see that in the street fund when we get there. Painting for City Hall. The public safety building needs to have its boiler replaced. And then there's a surface coating needed at the aquatic center. This facility here needs some alarm upgrades. The aquatic center also has some lighting upgrades and some skylight replacement that we're looking to do. A lot of the leaking that happens at the roof right now, we've identified as being the skylights are probably the problem. So we're looking to replace those, and hopefully that's going to reduce the roof leakage quite a bit.
At the senior center, we have furnace, heat pump, and downspout replacements that need to happen. The community center needs some improvements to its exit ramps and the sidewalk. And then there's additional parking structure repairs that are needed, some sky bridge work for the library. The City Hall garage roof needs to be replaced. And as part of the new building for the new modular for Public Works, we have to put in a new backflow preventer. So it's a pretty minor cost, but that's $1 million total. So we talked about it in the executive team meeting this morning, and Chair Maxfield, you mentioned asking us to bring you places where you could potentially do policy discussions about trade-offs with fully staffing the aquatic center. This $1 million program is essentially an ad package. So one of the discussion points this committee could have is around reducing the $1 million number. I wouldn't focus on the actual projects. That's our job. And really you're only delaying it a year if you reduce it. So those projects would still happen. But if this committee wanted a place to discuss policy-wise or how you could potentially fully fund the aquatic center while having a minimal impact to regular operations in the rest of the city, this would be a place that is a proper place to have that discussion. And with that, I'll have any questions on those projects, and I can switch back and forth on slides if needed.
Counselor Chenoweth?
I don't know why I'm always going first, but thank you, Chair. So with the modular building, which is desperately needed, I thought we were building a new building that was going to house some of this as well.
We would love to build a new building. It's a pretty sizable cost, and that building would need kind of Jenga blocks of funding with a lot of different sources, and we don't see it happening on the horizon. The nice thing about the modular building is it allows us to focus on building new shop space, and then we can move the modular over to there and find out how to build that facility in the long run.
We didn't already, I guess I'm confused. Didn't we already purchase a location or specify a location where we were putting a new building and that new building was being built?
That building was being designed. That building to be built is a $50 million plus facility on the whole. We're trying to be realistic about what we actually have, so the focus would be on new shop space first. And then we can move this modular over there. A full admin building is a desire and a need long-term, but we're realistic.
Okay, got it. And then when you said the executive team talked about this, was this kind of as a whole, the executive team's area that we should, are you saying that, you're saying that this is where we should look, or the executive team as a whole is saying this is probably where we should?
The executive team as a whole had this discussion, so we meet weekly. In our meeting today, the comment that was made by Chair Maxfield about asking for locations where we can do it, I brought up this was a location that made logical sense for a solid policy discussion to happen that would have minimal impacts on how we're operating. So we just wanted to point it out as one location that you can talk about potentially reducing funds here, because our financial plan assumes a continuous $1 million a year. You can lower that number to fund the aquatic center if the committee so chose. That's a discussion for you all, though.
It's your recommendation, not necessarily the executive team as a whole.
It was my recommendation that this was a place that you all should have a discussion. It was not my recommendation to actually do the reduction.
Okay, no, but in terms of bringing this as the policy point, this is.
I brought it up, they all agreed to me, that made sense.
They all agreed. That's what I'm after. Thank you.
Director Henry?
If I can clarify that point just a little bit. The discussion had to do with wanting to make sure that we respected the request that was given to us and the charge that we had to try to find a place where we could come forward. And all of the budgets were already pared down as far as they could go. And you can see that in each of the presentations where we're showing you all of the requests that were not put through. So they've been pared down. The aquatic center is a request that increased FTEs, and that's why it was brought to you to make the decision, because the ones that were approved were the ones that kept things status quo or that decreased. We didn't do increases, and the aquatic center has an increase that we were not able to fund. All of us agreed that the capital is the only area that wouldn't affect what we are doing, what we are serving and providing to the community. So that involves either the 1 million set aside, so you could put aside 800,000 instead of $1 million, or you could not fund the full $1 million in deferred maintenance. We don't recommend that because we're so far behind in deferred maintenance. But those are the only things that would not impact operations for the service we provide.
Thank you for the clarification. And to express my intent really clearly, as I went through this budget before these meetings, I really was impressed with what I saw. And those that have heard me be critical of the budget knows that that's not something I say lightly. If I'm hearing a statement that is the EEC together said this is kind of the best place to look, given the effort that I see was put into this budget, I'm finding myself unusually wanting to be beholden to their recommendation. So, thank you.
Okay, other questions?
Counselor Benner?
Sort of a broader procedural question. The capital improvement plan is new to our budget. In previous years, this fund did not exist, correct?
So in previous years, this capital for facilities would have been in individual funds based on the building. And it's pretty hard for us to actually administer that because, for example, as something as simple as creating a purchase order, we have to get the approval and the budgeting. The purchase order has to be created by that individual department director. But really, all the department directors are our customers, and we look at it as Public Works is providing that service now, so we're combining it all into this location.
And so last year, there was some capital improvements done. It was just a convoluted way to pay for it?
Yes, and it was nowhere near $1 million.
Okay. And then follow-up question is the $1 million, that is going to be, let's say it's a roof repair, that's not any of our staff doing that. That's all contracted out. So it's fair to say that $1 million will all be third party because the existing staff is already busy.
Correct. We only have 2 facility staff for all of our facilities, and they have to now also absorb managing all these contracts, which we have to get individual quotes, go through the process of bringing it to the city council and everything. So this alone is going to be a significant lift. Gianni he's ready and raring to go. He's actually been working on getting prepped. We've been having discussions with the city attorney on our contracting, a whole lot of stuff to be able to knock this out. It's going to be a lift for our staff to be able to pull this off next year.
Thank you.
I just wanted to thank you for taking on this big CIP overview and doing all the work to interview all the different people. And I can only imagine how much effort that took, and I really appreciate it. And then I also appreciate you possibly being willing to let us consider not honoring all your hard work. So I appreciate that. That is very helpful. Thank you. Any other, Councilor Geary?
Yes, on the, I share my appreciation, thank you. On the list, there's 80,000 Nelson House sidewalk. I know, and maybe this is too broad and too hopeful, but with all the ODAR work going on, is there any way to piggyback with those people doing all that already?
Oh, contracting with them to do the work?
I'd say no, and the reason I'd say no is that we're going to have to address those trees.
Yeah.
And I can guarantee you ODOT won't have anything to do with that.
Yeah, fair enough.
Part of it.
I will say, though, that ODOT did give us $48,000 next year to do the
Fourth and Baker.
the Fourth and Baker, because they didn't want to mess with the trees. We're in-house designing that corner, and there is, I suppose, potential to
You could-
combine those.
Sure, I think about that,
Which
yeah.
is actually a pretty good idea, and we can try to get those both done in one
Yeah,
contract.
you could do that as one contract.
That's a free idea. You can have that idea.
Zach, will you yield for a follow-up? So, and on another hat that I wear, I'm the vice chair of MWACT, Mid-Willamette Area Commission on Transportation. And ODOT in those meetings has said one of the things that they're trying to do in order to make things more efficient is to team up with the cities when they're doing work in an area to get stuff done at the same time. And as a result, bring efficiencies to cost. So just throw that in your hat for what it's worth.
Yeah, I'll have a discussion with Jeff Gooden next week on that, because he's our point of contact with ODOT on that work. So we'll see what we can do there. But I appreciate the idea. That's pretty good.
Counselor Tukolsky?
Sorry, I think the record didn't pick that up, that he said that's a good idea. Can you repeat that, Jeff? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I guess this is more of a general question for the group here, rather than you, Jeff. I was looking at the cost of the parking structure repairs. What are we repairing at $184,000?
I will defer that to Mr. Renshaw.
So what you have there, sir, is you have a combination of problems. We have some concrete spall damage in a number of places where the rebar's rusted and concrete spalled. Big example, if you look to the northwest corner, there's some exposed rebar. There's multiple spots of that. But in at least 2 stairwells, same sort of issue. The big dollar piece is going to be replacing all the joints. The joints have not been replaced since 1993. And there's about 4,600 lineal feet of horizontal joints and another 3,000 or 4,000 feet of horizontal joints. They all have to be cleaned out. All the backer rod has to come out and all has to get redone.
Okay.
So what we would do is we'll scope the project similar to what they did in 93, and we'll go as far as we can. We'll get as much done as we can. So those are the big ticket items there. There's also money in there to pressure wash and seal the concrete as well.
Yeah.
So there's quite a bit of work there.
So it really is a deferred maintenance. It's not an ongoing cost?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, you wouldn't replace those seals every year. I mean,
Right.
In a perfect world, you'd say we're going to do a third of the seals every year, but that ship has sailed. Maybe moving forward, we'll be able to do that, but we're in a catch-up mode.
Is there a value that you could put on that structure for ongoing costs? If you could? Or is it like this divided by 10?
Facility assessment had the costs that were put into it. We're making some decisions about things like, the elevators never really worked, and so we're just going to permanently close it and just state ADA parking only available on the first floor, things like that. I mean, it's concrete, so it's going to hold up decently well, but at some point, it's going to be very expensive to really fix that whole thing.
I agree with that. And sir, are you looking for like an ongoing maintenance cost to keep the facility, keep the joints up?
Yeah, exactly. And the reason I'm asking is because it's a structure that's used heavily by the county. And we're not recovering any costs from that. So just to be transparent, what I'm considering is there's 222 spaces there. If you just take the days of the week, Monday through Friday, there's 261 per year. That's 57,942 parking spaces a year, assuming 100% use, which it's not. If you divide this value that you've brought here over those parking spaces, it's basically $3 per day to park if you're going to charge people. And that would give you the opportunity every year to spend that. And obviously, we're not going to be spending $184,000 per year, but should we be considering some kind of a parking fee or parking permit for that area that would allow us to maintain this and not put it in our general fund?
It's something we can consider. I will say I have some experience with working with paid parking garages. They have to go hand in hand with parking enforcement on the streets, because people will just move out onto the streets instead, and then you'll have pretty sizable neighborhood impacts. They also, the amount of infrastructure costs to go to those programs. So, you know, the toll gates and all that stuff can get pretty expensive. Thankfully, the garage itself exists, but those parking garages tend to operate at a loss for the first 10 years of their life, often. So I don't know if you'd see sizable, if revenue increases, but it is something we can look at. It would be, we'd have to probably talk with some more experts on it to get you good numbers on something like that.
Okay, I understand it. You took it to a level that I wasn't considering. I'm considering the high school parking lot. Do you have a permit hanging from your dash or not? So at that point, you can enforce it. It also wouldn't penalize the people that are using it on the weekends, Saturdays and Sundays, if you're not including that. I know we're in the details here.
Yeah.
This is not the spot for that,
I
but
do know there was discussions with the county in the past. That's changed quite a bit with their purchase of the Oregon Mutual building. So I don't know what their usage is going to look like as they're fully moved over there, but
I guess I just asked this body to consider some kind of an opportunity to fund this correctly, rather than just from taxpayers every 10 years. Thank you for the numbers. I appreciate it.
And Heather, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that as part of the downtown master plan, some of that was going to be looked at more thoroughly, correct?
Yeah, so one of the scope of work objectives is to look at downtown, look at parking in that area that will be the city center study area and where there's need for more inventory and also management.
It looks like you can continue. Oh, so.
I've made the same comments for a few years. I'd love to see that happen. So I put a second voice on potentially looking at how we can reasonably, cost-wise, put in some sort of way to fund it in a way that's more equitable.
Understood. All right. So I'm going to give Mr. Renshaw a quick break here and bring up our airport manager.
Notice we share similar haircuts
Yeah.
when we roll in Public Works.
Yeah. So now we're going to talk about the airport maintenance fund, pages 389 to 400 for those that are trying to follow along in their books. Give you a moment to get there. All right, so the airport maintenance fund is an enterprise fund. It is sustained by outside revenues, not the general fund. So we have revenues coming from our hangar and land leases. We also get a lot of revenues from FAA and state grants, especially for our capital work. So a lot of years you'll see significant increases or decreases in revenue coming in for the airport fund. That is because the FAA is directly funding a project. We also have some fees out there, and there's going to be more discussion around airport fees soon with the Airport Commission. And then we have our operating agreements. That is our fixed-based operator, our FBO, where we are transitioning to a new FBO and a new FBO contract this year. The core services for the airport are operations and maintenance, the airfield maintenance, all the FAA and regulatory compliance, the lease and enterprise fund management, capital planning, the airport safety and security, and then economic development and community partnerships. This is all done with our one-man army, or I guess Navy would be more appropriate, Mr. Pascal, who does all that for us, and really happy to have him on board. This is our first full-time airport manager in quite some time, and it's something that's, I believe, going to pay dividends and is already doing so with a lot of the work that's being done. So as far as budget changes, it was a bit more of a status quo year. The biggest change that you'll see is that significant increase in FAA funding and that correlating capital outlay expenditure of that money that is for our fencing and security project that is occurring. We already put that out to bid, and that project work is going to be starting in July. So some of the highlights, obviously, we have this is our first full year with John on board. He came in partway through last year. He is doing an evaluation of the airport rates, fees, and lease structures right now. That discussion is going to happen with the Airport Commission first, and then with the council afterward, after their recommendations. We're continuing to transition to that new fixed base operator, Trimble Aviation, who got that contract recently. We still see ongoing challenges with our aging infrastructure and deferred maintenance. It's something that all airports experience, especially smaller GA airports. But the important thing is it's continuing to operating as a self-supporting enterprise fund, and it has no general fund support. So with that, we'll go to any questions on the airport maintenance fund.
I just have a question about the fencing. How long do you think that process is going to take?
It's a three-phase project, so we're able to start the first phase in the first week of July. Second phase will be in August, and then we'll finish it by the end of September. After lark season, we can do phase 3. So it'll be done by the end of September.
Okay, great. Thank you, and you're doing a great job.
I think that's it.
Love how efficient. See you next year. Your break was short, Mr. Renshaw. You get to come on back. So now we're jumping into the other half of what our operations group does, which is our street and transportation funds. Pages 373 to 388 for the street fund. We'll cover that one first. Okay, so our street fund, its revenues are pretty much the Oregon State gas tax. So the Oregon State gas tax is set up in the Oregon Constitution, is 50% of the funding goes to ODOT, 30% goes to the counties, and then 20% goes to the cities. The cities share that split based on population, not based on the amount of roads you have. So we only get more money from the state gas tax proportionally if our population increases faster than other cities. We have to do a lot with that gas tax, and this has to all be done in the right of way. That is also a rule in the state's constitution. This dollars cannot go to fund anything outside of the right of way. So we have to cover pavement maintenance and repair. We do have some sidewalks, not all. A lot of the sidewalks are the responsibility of the adjacent homeowner, but we do have some sidewalk responsibilities. We have ADA ramps and our crosswalks that we maintain. We do not have a stormwater fund, so stormwater and street sweeping operations are covered by the street fund within the right-of-way. We also maintain a lot of our streetscape maintenance, things along Alpine or things along 3rd Street. We have all of our traffic signage and pavement markings in town. We also do snow and ice response, so the plows, the putting down gravel, putting down salt, we do that. Any debris removal, if a large oak tree, for example, falls down on Cypress, we have to go out there with the chainsaws and cut it up into smaller pieces so it can be removed. We also have our fleet and equipment maintenance and the street trees. So the current staffing is 10.6 FTE. One of the things that the council asked us to look at last year was bringing street sweeping in-house. So one of the add packages that is approved and in this budget is for in-house street sweeping. What that add package includes is one additional utility worker 2. That's a person that has a CDL, so that's why it's at that level. And also the one-time purchase now of a new sweeper and a used sweeper as well for a backup. So we don't want to, if something happens with the new sweeper and it has to go in for warranty work, we don't want to just stop sweeping, so we need to purchase both. There are some additional benefits beyond the sweeping itself that occurs. We have improved emergency response, so we have additional staff. We have enhanced storm preparedness and recovery. We can go out and sweep the areas of town that we know tend to flood a little bit more and might have clogged drains. One of the things that David really wanted me to mention is we have a better network-wide condition awareness. So we have to cover over 120 miles of road. We only have the 10 staff, so they're not seeing every bit of road all the time. If you have a street sweeping program, you have somebody that is looking at every bit of road pretty much every 6 weeks. That person then can mark off, there's a pothole here, there's this, there's that. So we would be a little bit more proactive with our response than right now we're relying on all of you and the other residents in the city to call us to let us know there's something broken and we need to fix it. And then just additional operational flexibility. For example, we do the leaf pickup time of year. And so that time of year, we'd probably be running both sweepers, not just the one. And we'd have that flexibility, which we don't have in a contract in general. Now, there is a significant one-time increase of $573,000 to the fund to cover that purchase of that new equipment. Since new equipment has significant capital, the way we evaluated this ad package was on an 8-year model. Street sweepers generally last about 8 years for a city of our size. Those engines are running 40 hours a week. It's a lot of wear and tear. The brooms themselves, apologies to DJ, but are going to be a bit of a nightmare. But they generally last about 8 years. So we looked at this as an 8-year model, what we would spend over the 8-year period, and then looked at also adding in a reserve so that at the end of 8 years, we'd be able to afford a new street sweeper. So with all that, it comes out to a net annual increase of $33,000 a year. Now it's obviously very heavy on that first year. So the way to cover that is we're proposing a transportation fund transfer this year. Usually the street fund transfers into the transportation fund, but we are proposing this year to go the opposite way. So we get ODOT fund exchange money that is basically federal fund exchange, and that money can be used to purchase equipment. So we're proposing to do that this year. We were able to do a pretty sizable pavement project last year with Cypress and Fellows. So we felt like it was okay this year to cut back on the transportation fund to fund a program like this. And it's something that we're really looking forward to. Dale Marshall, our street supervisor, put a lot of work into figuring out this model and bringing this to us. And it looks like something we would like to do.
I would add, Jeff, that we still will have a localized pavement repair program in the street fund. And we'll kind of try and concentrate on collectors and arterials there. So kind of what you saw on the west end of 2nd Street last year, where we know areas of those heavier traveled roads are having problems. It's a stopgap approach, but it's stuff that has to happen anyway. So it's not like this will completely stall our pavement management program. I just wanted to make sure you all understood that.
So the highlights for the street fund this year, it has that in-house street sweeping program. There's also a replacement for a 3/4 ton utility pickup in there this year. We're continuing to have ongoing investment in our fleet and equipment reserves. That's something that was started a few years back now, and it's helping us to avoid those big one-time hits for capital. As David just mentioned, we're going to have some localized pavement repairs still. It's just going to be lesser this year. And then no gas tax transfer from street fund into the transportation fund this year. One thing I also wanted to point out is I know everybody is on pins and needles about Measure 120. That additional gas tax does include additional revenue for all the parts of that the gas tax goes to. So we would see probably about an additional revenue of about $1 million to the city if that gets approved, but this budget does not include that additional revenue. We're waiting to see how the voters handle that this May. So with that, are there any questions about our street fund budget?
Sorry, Mayor Morris. I'm so used to. So what was excluding the equipment purchase, what was our savings from going from a contract to in-house? I know there was one.
Hang on a sec, Your Honor, let me take a look.
You have a third.
Yeah, right here. So I'll just roll the numbers at you. So the in-house, and this would be the operating cost, not counting the purchase of equipment, ranges from about $230,000 to $296,000 over that 8-year period. Really years 2 through 8. But the contract cost would rise from $277 to over $341 And what you're seeing with the contract costs is you're seeing constant increases. And one of the disadvantages that we have is there's a pretty small supply of this type of contractor, and not any of them are in our area. Our two local vendors really aren't sized to do this sort of work. So these guys come out of Vancouver. There's Great Western out of Sherwood, Tualatin area. There's somebody else up in Portland area, but I mean, it's tough to get folks to come down here. And one of the costs that we incur is, of course, their travel time down here. So that's why Dale kind of went down this path a couple of years ago and has been kind of watching the situation and kind of doing a model almost every year, and became pretty clear that this might be the best way to do it.
I think so.
Also add, we had to come up with some numbers earlier in the year, obviously, for what the equipment was going to cost. Our quotes are coming in lower, so that's good. So we're probably going to actually be underrunning what we have budgeted, but you know, we had to take our best shot when talking to the vendors and things earlier this year. And then also we are in discussions with Recology about the disposal costs here at the transfer station, and if that's something that would be wrapped into that agreement with them, or if it's something that we'd be paying for. So that might tweak the numbers on what the annual costs are. Right now, I believe they drive down to Coffin Butte to do the disposal, so we also pay for that.
Yeah, that material's trucked to Coffin Butte about once a week. So that need would go away with this ability to partner with Recology. But also, if we're able to do that, I think there's a $25,000 line item in this budget for a couple of boxes, a couple rollaway boxes that we would need, that we would not need if we're able to go to Recology. So there's an opportunity here. I think.
When are we going to know about that with Recology?
Right now, the agreement we have a draft that I started with a draft I sent to them. Their attorney has put it together, and now our city attorney, Mr. Leitenberg, is looking at it. So once we get through that, I think we'll be able to have a better update on timing for the council. It depends on how close we are after David takes a look.
I just want to also, just one last thing is, I'm looking forward to a better quality of service too. It's unfortunate that there's as much dirt left behind as it started currently. So I think this will be a good move. Thank you for everybody that
We
put
think
into
the
it.
quality will be better. There's a couple reasons for that. You as in us, control schedule. We control quality of work on a daily basis, right? Be able to respond to questions much quicker. And you just can't make up for hometown pride, right? The guys live here, right? The guys want to make it look nice. And we've got a good crew that's very interested in doing this work. Frankly, they're excited about it. So we're hopeful we'll get a better product too.
Councilor Peralta?
Thank you. So I just wanted to confirm, though, that once you roll in the costs of the equipment, it's actually a higher carrying cost for the first 8 years, based on the assumptions that you had? Not a carrying cost, but total cost rolled in with the machines and the...
Yes, right now, what was put together in the model, it nets out over an 8-year period to be an additional $33,000 a year of increased costs.
So my question is, do you have an assumption that, I realize that you're kind of assuming that the life cycle for these machines is 8 years. Is there a scenario short of, I understand we can get cost savings with the Recology agreement, and there may be other places to get cost savings, but is there a scenario that in year 9, the overall cost is less than what we're paying, like because we're carrying a machine for longer than 8 years? Or, I mean,
Yes.
where are the opportunities to
Yes.
actually make this cash positive for the city relative to what we're paying now?
Yeah, so like I mentioned, we're already coming in lower with the quotes, so that helps a lot. If we can stretch it out, that the machine lasts longer, obviously, it's going to become more cost effective. And then while there is the additional costs, we did feel that the additional eyes on the road and the additional staff to handle emergency response, our contractor doesn't come out during a snow event. But this is another person with a CDL that can go out and make the roads safe for people. We felt that that offset cost, since it wasn't cost neutral, it was well worth the additional $33,000 we felt to have just better service overall for our residents.
And the additional staffing capacity in case of.
Correct.
You do get some latent capacity as well. You know, if it's, you may not have a full 40-hour-a-week sweeping requirement, particularly if when I'm not hauling. So it gives you a part of the body you can put somewhere else.
Got it.
The other thing it does for us as the TMDL grows and those requirements grow, I wouldn't be too surprised if our sweeping frequency requires. You would notice better than me, but I think in the metro area, they're actually sweeping their residential areas once a month.
Correct.
And we're only doing it once every 6 weeks. So I wouldn't be stunned as that stormwater program evolves if our frequency goes up. So this will position us to do that.
That is another good point about the stormwater fund. I know there's been a lot of discussions over the year about a stormwater fund. The street fund pays for that. In most municipalities that have a stormwater fund, it is paid for by that. If the council ever adopts a stormwater fund, that fund would then pay back the street fund for the capital that went into whatever whatever is still worth it on that equipment. So if you were propping it up, that new fund would pay for that transfer. The staff would probably stay where they're at, but they would be paid then out of that other fund. And the model that was brought to, that was looked at by the PAC and brought to the council did assume that in there.
Thank you.
Director Henry, I think has something.
I just wanted to respond to the mayor's comment about what the net was without the equipment cost, because we had split it out. So it's about $51,800 in savings. So when we back out that capital cost, it's actually a net savings when we take out the contract and put the people in and trade all that out. It's about a savings of a little over $50,000.
Counselor Geary?
I see we're also purchasing a new unit and a backup used unit in this budget, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Have we purchased the new one yet?
No,
The budget hasn't been approved, so we don't have the dollars.
we
We could try that, but we get in trouble when we do.
They don't like that. There's special places in jail for people that do.
Switching gears from the street sweeping to the street tree program, so just a little bit above that in the budget. We have $20,000 budgeted specifically for that, the activities related to planting, removal, and pruning of street trees in the downtown core. I know that's something we always budget, and as history would show in the previous years, we don't always spend that allotted amount. And so, you know, it's great to come in under budget on years, but it's also good to do the work we're trying to budget and plan for. So do we have any planned work for the downtown core tree pruning this year?
Well, I'll take a start and then I'll let David go, but part of the issue with the street tree funds for the downtown core, so the city has to pay for 50%, it's in our code that we cover 50% of the cost for sidewalk repairs. And at this point, a lot of the downtown core sidewalk repairs are due to a tree. Now, the city covers the full cost of the tree, so if we get a code complaint that comes in that we have to enforce about a sidewalk separation that necessitates the removal of that tree and the fixing the sidewalk, we have to pay 50% of the cost of the sidewalk and all the cost to replace the tree. So it kind of sits there as a hold for those code compliance issues that we can't always predict. So it's hard for us to have a proactive tree replacement with it because it more sits there reactively. And then David, if there's...
That's basically what I was going to say.
Okay.
Yeah.
I understand.
It's just difficult to be proactive with that whole deal.
Okay.
Now, that being said, a bit of its staff capacity, there are certainly places where we're behind as far as replanting for sure.
Yeah.
So I won't deny that.
And aside from replanting or preemptively replanting, just pruning itself.
Yeah.
Pruning, we do. Large-scale pruning, we contract. Small-scale pruning, we do ourselves.
Okay.
And I know a lot of the downtown trees. Director Richards, did you have anything else you wanted to add on that? Okay.
Very good.
All right.
Oh, Counselor Renner?
Point of education, stormwater is one of your core services. Can you explain where you start and stop and where? So do you also manage all the pipes underground and?
We are responsible for the management of the pipes underground. Whether or not we actively manage them is, so essentially, we are only reactive for stormwater. We, suck out the catch basins to get the leaves out of the sumps. If a pipe breaks, we will go and fix it. But we are not actively cleaning or replacing those on any kind of schedule because we just don't have the funds.
Oh, Counselor Tukolsky?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Every year, since we're talking about wastewater, Cypress floods between, I would say, Second and, Fellows. And you're giving me a...
Oh, I'm giving you I'm listening to you.
Okay.
There's also a special place in prison for people, city councilors do. So
Yeah.
that's why I'm listening.
Definitely watch out, yeah. No, so so that road floods every year, and we had just reallocated, I think it was 300,000 in the
Yes, that's in,
former ARPA dollars.
Yeah, that shows up in our stormwater capital fund.
Okay, will that solve that flooding issue mainly if we're sweeping? And we have also replaced this.
Sweeping will help, because what sweeping will allow us to do is send crews out in advance of that and say, hey, we know heavy rain's coming, it's October.
Yeah.
Let's go through and sweep that area. The real culprit there is the London plane trees in the park, huge leaves. One of the things, and I would defer to you because I'm not sure where you live, but I think it's flooded less in the last couple of years because we changed, there's a series of field inlets, and then the last one is right before it crosses Cypress. What was happening is those London plane tree leaves would plug that up, then the whole thing backs up over tops. Well, we changed the sizing of the inlet. We basically opened up the bottom of it, and I just happened to be talking to a guy about this because we were looking at the plans for Cypress about how to set those field inlets. So I think there's a way we can set that inlet up so those large leaves continue on, because they're not going to plug the pipe up. No. But so I think I'm not going to look at it and say it's going to 100% solve the problem, because at the end of the day, if the inlet blogs, it blogs. Sure. But I think sweeping the area helps. Then the catch bases can't overtop or plug up, excuse me. And with that extra, certainly with the extra pipe capacity, we're going to get that'll help as well. Okay. Does that help?
Yeah, it's super inconvenient for the people that have their houses right there. And
Fortunately, we've never got in someone's house. We've gotten close, but we haven't got in. I know the lady that lives on the corner.
So she's the one you have to watch out for. Yeah.
Nice lady.
Thank you.
Well, maybe I have a special place in her heart, I guess.
Okay, I think that's the end of that. How many more parts of?
So we have, let's see, we did airport, so we have transportation, park development, stormwater I do pretty quickly, and then wastewater. So they're gonna move pretty quick because storm and park are very short. Transportation's pretty short. Wastewater's the biggest one, but nobody ever wants to talk about it because it's gross. So we'll be able to move pretty quick.
Okay, everyone's doing okay? Okay, keep going.
All right. So we'll jump into transportation. So transportation, our revenues are the transportation SDCs, the system development charges. We also have our transfers that we do from the street fund, and then we have our federal ODOT fund exchange dollars. Core services out of this fund are essentially capital project delivery, pavement preservation, and then transportation planning. This fund also helps pay for our TSP. About half the dollars for the TSP are from our SDCs. Nothing really crazy this year. Like I said, we're doing a transfer the other direction this year, so it's a little less out of the transportation fund, but we are moving into that phase one of the TSP. That work will be starting in July. We also added in $150,000 for pedestrian safety improvements. $48,000 of that is for that corner at 4th and Baker. That money is coming from ODOT, so that is ODOT money that's paying for that. And then we put in about $100,000 looking at installing RRFBs at the Cypress and Old Sheridan intersection. That was a midterm solution that we came to the city council with as a interim safety improvement to make until that intersection is fully improved with development in the Southwest Area Plan. That 430,000 transfer that I mentioned earlier, and then the one that comes up, people ask about every year, is the money paying back the loan for the Newburgh-Dundee bypass. It comes out to about 201,000 when you do the loan and the interest. So promise I'd be quick. So that's the transportation fund. Any questions there?
I have one. Is it right? Yes. Okay. Are you up too? The Baker Creek Road and Michael Book signal, was that triggered by the Baker Creek development, and was it part of a transportation plan with that?
It triggers, I believe, a year after the work is finished. Is that right, Heather?
Yeah, so the completion of the phase 2 of it, which is the mixed use project, triggers the warrants for it. It's always been part of the capital improvement plan in the TSP.
So we've had to juggle the timing of that project specifically a few times because of staff resources. The reduction of a city engineer has also slowed it down a little bit, but we were having that discussion on if this was the year to move forward with that project. And could we be going here sooner rather than later? But we do have the budget in there. So hopefully if we get back up to our full staffing, that will be able to get started next year.
Councilor Chenoweth?
I just want to give, and I know Councilor Peralta would second this wholeheartedly, a big thank you for the work that was done at Cypress and Old Sheridan Highway. The speed by which that was rectified was noticed, appreciated, and we're very grateful for that getting done. So thank you.
Thank you for that. It's always hard to get address those things in a quick manner when we work at the speed of government, but we did try our best on that one.
Oh, Councilor Geary?
How many years left do we have paying $201,000 to Newburgh-Dundee
It's in here somewhere.
bypass?
I don't
It's a
recall that.
long time.
We have a long time?
I won't be here then.
Okay.
It was refinanced a couple years ago, so it's
Yeah.
a pretty long time.
I want to say it's like 2066, but.
2066?
Don't quote me on that. But it's in here.
200,000?
Oh, so that's what it says in
Go
the
up.
budget book. Yeah, so for a while.
Yeah,
2066?
I'm not, okay, good. Yeah, it was refinanced, I don't know, 18 years ago, something like that, sir?
It was refinanced
I won't be here.
recently. Dave Hagenberg came before us when I was on council.
Yeah, I mean, I was here. They said, I think at the time they said it was free money, but there you go. All right, very good.
Nothing.
The refinancing with the interest rate Hagenberg presented got us additional money for the bypass without increasing our payment.
Right.
It's kind of like cash out refinance when the rates go down.
All right. You want to hang out for park development? All right, let's do it. I guess I jumped forward there.
You're
Was
good.
any other questions? Okay.
I don't think so.
Park Development Fund, this is in pages 411 to 418. So this is something that Public Works kind of absorbed in the interim while Director Berg has been covering running Parks and Rec. We kind of absorbed park development for a while. Where that lands long-term, I think that's going to be much more of a discussion with the city manager, the new Parks and Rec director. But right now, it's with us. So the revenues for the Park Development Fund, mostly it's the park SDCs. We also get donations and grants that can go into that fund as well. And really what it's meant to do is capital project delivery and level of service improvements. Not a lot of highlights this year because we're kind of holding our breath a little bit to see what happens with decisions here in the community. But we are trying to continue to implement the PROS plan. This fund has potential for very significant growth if the CPR bond passes, if it goes to, well, one, if it goes to the vote, and then two, if it passes, this is the fund that the money would be going into. And we're also having discussion around the Park SDC methodology right now, which could change the amount of money that comes in every year for SDCs and the implementation rate for park projects. So not a lot happening this year, but the potential for a lot to happen coming up. So with that, is there any questions specifically on the Park Development Fund? All right.
Keep going.
You don't have to stay anymore. Sorry. I'm going to cover both the stormwater operations and capital fund in one shot because they're very small, but they're pages 439 to 452. There's not a lot in them. So revenues at this point, they're only grants. So ARPA funds, or the funds formerly known as ARPA, is what is paying for the storm pipe replacement that's in the linear park. The reason why that's paying for it is it's outside the right-of-way, so we can't use our street funds to pay for it. There's no stormwater fees, there's no stormwater revenue coming in, and there's no staffing out of stormwater. These funds are just a placeholder, and if something comes up like a grant, we can properly put it here instead of what was done historically, where it was kind of hidden in wastewater and it really shouldn't have been. It wasn't a good financial practice. So the only thing in that capital fund this year is that linear park storm line replacement. It's 815 linear feet of pipe with the catch basins also being replaced. As David was just mentioning, we're doing that design in-house right now. So we're not going out to a consultant for that, and then we'll put it out to bid with contractors, depending on what we think the cost estimate's going to be coming up. But we budgeted, I believe, what, 350,000? 350,000 for this year for that work. So, any questions on those two stormwater funds? They might be the easiest funds to discuss in the entire city. There's nothing there. All right, now I'm going to bring up Mr. Grimstead. So Eric is our new wastewater services manager. Leland Kester retired this year, and Eric's taking it on and taking on a very big lift, and we're very excited that he accepted the position, because I can sleep at night. Pages 453 to 475 for the wastewater services fund. We'll do that one first and then move into capital fund after that. Okay, so revenues for the wastewater services fund's pretty easy. It's wastewater rates and charges. We have to do quite a bit with those. This is our largest fund in public works. So we have to operate the wastewater treatment plant. We have to take care of our collection system. So all the sewer pipes in the ground. We also have to maintain and operate all our pump stations. We have our biosolids and residuals management. So we have biosolids that we truck out to various agricultural land here in the community for free fertilizer. We have an industrial pretreatment program that we have to monitor. We have water quality we have to do, and then we have emergency response, both with sewer overflow prevention and just kind of keeping an eye on all those pump stations. They get a little squirrely right now. We have plans to improve that, but especially, I guess, when it's foggy, the radios don't work very well, which is a little odd, but it is what it is. They're old. So we have our asset maintenance and equipment replacement. We have a laboratory at the wastewater treatment plant, so we actually have to do our own lab sampling and monitoring, and we have all the rules that we have to follow with that. We do utility billing support. Mac Water and Light does the billing for us. We pay into that, but also we have to do billing support when people have questions. Environmental compliance and that TMDL support, and then the safety training and operation of the plant. So this is our largest division at 22.5 FTE. We did have an ad package this year for the wastewater fund, so we're asking for an additional plant maintenance supervisor. Right now, that position is the operations and maintenance supervisor, so they're over 9 staff. So all the operators of the plant and all the mechanics. It's been The amount of work for that position has been growing substantially over the years. As the plant's gotten older, it's 30 years old now, so as you can imagine, we have more maintenance than we did when it was newer. So the intent for this additional FTE is to split the plant operations into two groups. So you have the operators and the mechanics. That gives the maintenance team further capacity for equipment replacements. Right now, the wastewater master plan identifies about 30 million in just equipment replacement over the next 20 years. And so there has to be somebody that's out there getting the quotes for all that, bringing the quotes to the council and everything. It's a sizable amount of work. And we felt that the supervisor position was the right place to put it. So this is a budget increase of about $173,000 a year to the wastewater fund. So it's all covered by wastewater rates and charges. So highlights out of this fund, again, is the ongoing support for our new solids handling. You know, when you add a big new process into the middle of the plant, it takes a few cycles to get it working properly. So there's additional work that goes into that. There's continued implementation of our regulatory compliance. We have been in the process of updating our NPDES permit, the National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System permit with DEQ. That should be, actually, we just sent it over to the attorney to look at recently. So that's almost done. So that has additional regulatory compliance that we have to do. We need to do some continued investment in preventative maintenance and asset management programs. We're going to be working with IS next year on some new potential software for that asset management system. What we have out there is very old, and we'd like it to be a little bit more predictive of what equipment we have and when it should be replaced. Right now, basically what we do is it gets printed out by the supervisor and put on a tack board, and then the mechanics go out and just take a piece of paper down from the tack board, go fix that, put it back up. It's a bit of a cumbersome process. We can do it a lot faster, a lot more efficiently with new software and some iPads that would also have SOPs and videos. Eric's got all kinds of great ideas. He's got this. We have continued staffing support, obviously, and then replacement of some critical operational equipment and vehicles. And then, obviously, we have been having discussions, well, maybe not obviously, but we've been having discussions with the council about the wastewater master plan that we're hoping to adopt by the end of the calendar year. And so we'll have to actually start implementing that. So that's going to be a big part of next year. So the proposed staffing does increase to that 23.4 number, and that is for that additional maintenance supervisor position. So with that, that was my mistake when I was putting this together at 2 in the morning last week. So here's the right one. So are there any questions on the wastewater services fund?
Councilor Tukolsky.
Yeah, I'll ask the perennial question that a lot of people ask in town. $13.67 per month goes to the city service fee. It's about $164 a year. What do I receive for that?
I will pass that to the city manager to answer because yes, it is on the sewer bill, but doesn't ever pass through the sewer hands.
So the MAC Water and Light bill, our sewer bill is a platform in which to collect that money, but it doesn't go into wastewater or stormwater. It goes into general fund revenue. So all the things you've seen presented out of the general fund are, a portion of that is funded out of the $2.2 million that city service fee collects.
I'm not satisfied with that, but thank you. Yeah.
Councilor Geary.
I have a specific question on page 474, I guess non-departmental way towards the end, the two line items, 7750 and 7780-40. One is the billing charges from Water and Light, and then one is McMinnville Water and Light new customer service charges. I just don't know what the difference between those two scopes of work or.
Which page were you on?
I'm on page 474.
Yeah, so the 72,000s for our just annual billing, and I believe the 85,000 is for all the setup that occurs for when a new customer comes online. So they have to go through the whole process of setting up the account, that tracking it, your sewer bills based on your water usage in the wintertime. And so I believe that's to cover all that. Yeah, that's correct.
Okay.
It's just separated out because it comes to us that way.
Okay.
And so it allows us to match up the data that's coming from Mac Water and Light over to us on the month by month and with the data reports, because they have everything split like that in their system. So it just matches the two systems together.
Yeah, I will say we're very thankful to Water and Light providing those billing services. I worked in a city where billing services was done in-house. We get a very good deal partnering with them.
Sure, no doubt. Those two read similar, and so I guess it's viewing them sort of as the same, but accounting-wise broken up. That helps me understand those two. I have no other questions. Just wanted to congratulate Mr. Grimstad on taking over the plant.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Looks like you can keep going.
All right, we are going to wrap up and be able to get a whiskey before bed. So wastewater, sorry, my apologies. Pages 477 to 487 for wastewater capital. So our wastewater capital has two revenue sources: the wastewater SDCs that new development pays for increase in capacity on the system, and then our wastewater rates. We run a no debt model currently. So how that works is we collect, we basically transfer roughly $6 million a year from what we collect in wastewater rates and put it into our capital fund to fund all the improvements in the system. So this fund has that capital project planning and delivery. It has all the wastewater plant upgrades and expansion. Same thing with the collection system. Our sewer master plan was funded out of here. And then any of our growth-related infrastructure and our asset management and system resiliency improvements. Our highlights for next year, we're going to get that master plan done. We're also starting to design, like I mentioned earlier, on the Gateway project. We have some design initiation for our screening facility as well. That's a big project that we're going to have. Eric and Kevin Wood, our program manager, are working very closely on that right now. We also have some money in there for the design of the wastewater admin building improvements. That's the only project left on the previous master plan that hasn't been completed, is the upgrade of the administration building that's out there. With that, we are also doing a very targeted system-wide SCADA improvement. The system that we have is very old, and so we're putting quite a bit of work into updating that system and bringing on a SCADA consultant to be on retainer to help us maintain that system. The way we do it now is it's very old, and if something breaks down, Eric actually has to go in and rewrite code. There's people that are better at that, and frankly, we just need to be operating in this century. And then that continue, like I mentioned before, working with IS on that asset management and capital prioritization and software. So a bit of a smaller year for the wastewater capital fund since we've wrapped up our solids project, which is a very large project for us, but it's going to jump up again soon, I'm sure, after this wastewater master plan gets hopefully adopted. So with that, any questions on our wastewater capital?
Doesn't look like it. Thank you.
Done.
Okay, with no further business to come before the committee, I will now adjourn the Budget Committee meeting at 9:18 p.m. The budget will reconvene on Monday, May 18th at 6 p.m.